I fixed a leak at my old house as a favor to my estranged wife while she was out of town, but when I went to throw away the scraps I found a box of condoms in the trash can 3 weeks after separating, and she called me dishonorable for finding it while I was still paying her utility bills and mortgage. I have been with my wife, Sandra, 38F, for 11 years. We got married after 4 years of dating, so we have been married for 7 years now. We live in a house we bought together in a quiet part of the city called Hartwell Grove. It is a decent neighborhood, and the house was something we both worked toward. Before I get into why I am posting this, I should give some background on who Sandra is and what our marriage has looked like. Sandra is a motorcycle rider. She has been riding since before we met. When we started dating, I thought it was cool. She knew what she was doing on the road, and she was confident about it. That part was never the issue. The issue was that she developed a habit of going out for rides late at night, sometimes not leaving until 11 p.m. or midnight, and coming back 2 or 3 hours later. She said riding at night was when she felt most free because there was less traffic and fewer distractions. I understood that logic on paper. What I did not understand was why she could not send a quick message when she arrived somewhere or when she was heading back. I am not talking about check-ins every 20 minutes. I mean one text when she got to wherever she was going, and one when she was on her way home. That was it. She knew I did not sleep well when she was out that late, and I explained that to her clearly more than once. She did not see it that way. She said I was treating her like a child, and that she had been riding long before she met me and never needed to report to anyone. I get that argument. But there is a difference between needing to report to someone and choosing to let your partner know you are safe. She never quite accepted that difference. We went to couples counseling once, roughly 3 years into the marriage. The counselor pointed out that Sandra's pattern of going silent during the rides and only texting when she felt like it was creating a pattern of inconsistency, and that it was reasonable for me, Ryan, 40M, to want some basic communication. Sandra sat through that session and afterward agreed to do better. She started checking in more regularly for a few weeks. Then she drifted back to the same behavior. About 8 months ago, there was a specific night that stuck with me. She had gone out around 10:30 p.m. on a Friday, said she was going for a ride and might stop somewhere for a drink. I was fine with that. Around midnight, I sent her a message asking if she was doing okay. No response. I tried calling around 12:30. It went to voicemail. I sent another message at 1 a.m. Nothing. At around 1:15 a.m., I got into my car and drove to the bar she usually went to when she wanted a drink after riding. It is about a 12-minute drive from our house. When I pulled into the parking area nearby, I saw her motorcycle parked outside. I walked past it and put my hand near the exhaust pipe without touching it. It was cold. Not warm, not slightly cool from cooling down, but properly cold, the way metal gets when it has been sitting still for a long time. That bike had been parked there for at least an hour, probably more. I went back home. She came back around 2 a.m. and acted like everything was normal. I told her what I had done and what I found. She said I was overreacting and that she had been there for maybe 45 minutes. We went back and forth. Eventually, after a long conversation that went past 3 a.m., she apologized and said she would be more considerate. I accepted that and we moved on. Then, a few weeks later, something else happened. Sandra had been spending time at a coffee shop she liked, one that also served alcohol. She sometimes worked from there in the afternoons. On this particular day, she had been there for a couple of hours, and she was sending messages regularly enough that I was not concerned. Then she said she was heading to her home office to finish some work. After that, things went quiet. I was out with a couple of friends at a bar that evening. I called her at some point during the evening, partly just to check in. She missed the call. She called back a few minutes later. The moment I picked up, I could hear noise in the background. Not office noise. It was the kind of noise you hear at a packed bar on a weekend night, crowd sounds, music, the kind of ambient sound that does not exist in a home office. I asked her where she was. She said she was in her car. I mentioned the background noise and she said something about the car audio being on. Then, almost immediately, she said she had a call coming in from the real estate agent because we were in the middle of buying a new house, and she had to take it. She hung up. That was plausible enough. We were in contact with the agent regularly at the time. So I let it go. About an hour later, I sent her a message asking how the call with the agent went. She replied that she would call me shortly. When she did call, she was clearly in her car, and she gave me a detailed story about the agent, the lender, some paperwork issue, things that were going on with the house purchase. I asked her if the background noise earlier was really the car audio. She paused for longer than the question warranted and then said yes. That night I could not sleep. The next morning I checked our shared phone plan. It shows call logs for both numbers. I went through her calls from the previous evening. There was no incoming call from the real estate agent. There was no outgoing call to the lender. The calls she described simply had not happened. When I brought this up to her, she admitted she had been with a group of friends and had not mentioned it because she knew I would make it into a bigger deal than it was. She said the reason she lied was because she did not want to deal with my reaction, and that I needed to work on being less controlling. I did not continue that argument. Instead, I moved out of the house. I rented a place about 20 minutes away and told her I needed some space to think. We talked a few more times over the following week. Neither of us was screaming or crying. It was more like two people trying to figure out what they were actually dealing with. By the end of those conversations, we had both said, out loud, that we did not think the marriage was working. No one stormed off. We just sat with it. We agreed to divorce. We talked about staying on decent terms because we do not have children, but we do have shared finances, shared accounts, and a house. Sandra stayed at Hartwell Grove for the time being. I found a place, bought it, and started moving my things out. The reason I am posting this is because of what happened the day I went back to fix a problem at the old house. And I do not know what to do with it. Update 1: When I bought my new place, the first few weeks were quiet. The house was mostly empty. I had some basics, a mattress, a kitchen table, 2 chairs, some boxes I had not unpacked yet. I was not in a rush to settle in. Sandra and I had been civil. We were in the early stages of figuring out the divorce paperwork. No lawyers yet, just conversations about who owned what and how to split it. She was still living at Hartwell Grove until we decided what to do with it, sell or buy each other out. One evening I got a message from her saying there was water dripping from somewhere near the water heater in the garage. She sent a photo. I could see it was a small pinhole leak on one of the pipes connected to the tank. It was not an emergency, but it needed to be fixed before it got worse and damaged the floor or the wall behind it. Sandra said she was going out of town for a few days to visit her sister. She asked if I could come by and take a look while she was gone. I said I would. I drove over on a Thursday afternoon. Being in that house again was strange in a way I am not going to try and describe. I just moved through it practically and focused on the job. The repair itself was not complicated. I had the right tools and picked up the necessary parts from the hardware store on the way over. It took me a little over an hour. When I was done, I gathered the old pipe fittings, the thread tape, and the packaging from the parts I had used, and I went to the garage to throw everything into the trash can. The lid was not on properly, so I lifted it to put it back in place after throwing my stuff in. That is when I saw it. There was an open box of condoms sitting on top of the other trash inside the can. Not sealed. Open. Some of them were gone from the packaging. I stood there for a moment, then I put the lid on the can and walked out of the garage. Sandra and I had been separated for barely 3 weeks at that point. We were still legally married. I had still been covering my share of the utility bills and the mortgage for Hartwell Grove as part of our informal arrangement while we sorted out the paperwork. I drove home. I sent her a message saying the water heater was fixed and that she could stop worrying about it. She called me that evening to say thank you. During that call, I told her that I had found something in the trash and that I knew she had moved on, and that I also knew how she had chosen to do it given the timing. She did not say anything for a couple of seconds. Then she said I had no right to go through her trash. I told her I was throwing away the plumbing scraps and the lid was already off. She did not respond to that. Instead, she said that we had separated and that she did not owe me an explanation for her personal life anymore. Then she said we had an arrangement, meaning that she had assumed once we decided to separate, personal decisions were her own. I told her that I had never agreed to any arrangement, and that we were still married, and that I was still paying bills for that house. She said I was acting without honor because I was making something of what I found in the garbage. She told me I needed to look at my own behavior and my own insecurities that had driven the marriage to this point. I ended the call. The next morning I called my bank, removed myself from the joint savings account, canceled the automatic transfer that was covering part of the Hartwell Grove mortgage, and called the utility companies to take my name off the accounts. All of it done by noon. Update 2: A few things happened between update 1 and now that I want to write down for people who followed the original post. After I removed myself from the accounts, Sandra sent me a long message. The message was not an apology. It was mostly about how my cutting the finances was a form of retaliation and that she was going to bring it up to the divorce attorney she had hired. I did not respond to that message. About a week after that, I got a call from her sister, Nina, 35F. Nina and I had always gotten along fine. She called to tell me that Sandra had told her what happened, specifically about what I had found in the trash and that I had pulled out of the shared accounts. Nina said she was not calling to take sides, and I believed her because she was calm and not aggressive about it. She said she thought both of us were handling a hard situation badly, and she just wanted me to know that Sandra was not doing well. I told Nina I appreciated the call. I told her the account situation was not about punishment, it was about me not continuing to pay for a house I no longer lived in while my name was being used in a divorce filing. Nina said that made sense to her. We ended the call on decent terms. About 2 weeks after that, Sandra's attorney sent a letter about the mortgage. Since both our names are still on the loan, they wanted to discuss whether I would continue contributing until we had a formal agreement in place. I took that letter to an attorney of my own. My attorney looked at the situation and advised me that stopping contributions unilaterally could complicate things in mediation. He suggested a temporary arrangement where I contribute a reduced amount, not the full half, while we sort out the actual split. I agreed to that because it made more legal sense than creating a fight over it. The house purchase I had made for myself went smoothly. I got the keys, the place is in my name only, and I have been living there for about a month now. As for the condom situation, Sandra never brought it up again after that phone call. No explanation, no admission, nothing. I did the math myself. If I moved out 3 weeks before I found that box, and the trash had other things in it suggesting it had been used at least once since I left, then that was a very short window. We are talking about days, maybe a week or two after I moved out, while we were still having conversations about whether the marriage could somehow be saved. I did not bring it up again either. My attorney told me it is not relevant to the divorce proceedings unless I wanted to make it relevant, and that doing so would likely just make things messier and longer. I decided not to. The process is moving forward. Mediation is scheduled for about 6 weeks from now. Update 3: mediation happened last week. I want to give a final update for anyone who has been following this. It took about 4 hours across 2 sessions. Sandra and I were in separate rooms for most of it. The mediator moved between us. The house at Hartwell Grove is going to be listed for sale. We agreed on that. Neither of us wanted to buy the other out, and after all the back and forth, neither of us wanted to keep it. The equity will be split after the sale costs are covered. The joint savings account had already been sorted before mediation started. I had removed myself from it in update 1, but there was a remaining balance that had to be formally divided. That got handled. Sandra had wanted to include a claim about the months I had stopped paying the full mortgage contribution. My attorney had already dealt with that by documenting the reduced contribution arrangement we had agreed to, so it did not become a major issue. Her attorney pushed back on a couple of small things, but nothing significant enough to drag the process out further. By the end of the second session, we had a draft agreement that both of us initialed. The final signed version gets submitted to the court after a review period. One thing I did not mention in the earlier updates was that around the same time as the water heater visit, my cat of 12 years was diagnosed with cancer. He passed away the same week I found the condom box. I took him to the vet, they gave me the options, and I made the call to let him go. He had been with me since before Sandra and I even started dating. I drove home from the vet and sat in my empty kitchen for a while. I am not going to make a bigger deal of that than it is. It happened. It was a rough week. The divorce will be finalized in about 2 months based on the court calendar. My house is mine. My accounts are mine. The motorcycle, which was always hers, stays with her. That is where things stand. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2: we lost our son and got back together on his birthday, but my ex was double dipping with our neighbor while acting confused about his feelings for me, so I said goodbye to his drama and found real love with someone honest. Lisa, 34F, and my ex-husband Andrew, 36M, have been divorced for 8 years. We got married when I was 20 and he was 22 because I got pregnant with our son Jamie during our sophomore year of college. Both our families pushed us hard to get married before the baby came. We tried to make it work for Jamie's sake, but we were just kids ourselves trying to figure out how to be parents and spouses at the same time. When Jamie was 2 years old, we both realized we were making each other miserable. We fought constantly about money, responsibilities, and pretty much everything else. We decided to divorce but promised each other we would put Jamie first no matter what. The divorce was actually the best thing that happened to our family. We became much better parents when we weren't trying to be married to each other. For the next 6 years, we had the kind of co-parenting relationship that other divorced couples envied. We lived in the same neighborhood so Jamie could bike between our houses. We attended every school event together, coordinated birthday parties, and even spent some holidays together for Jamie's sake. Andrew would come over to help me fix things around my house, and I would help him with his laundry when he was swamped with work deadlines. We became genuine friends. Jamie was diagnosed with leukemia when he was 7. The next year was a blur of hospital visits, chemotherapy sessions, and sleepless nights. Andrew and I took turns staying with Jamie during his treatments. We held each other up through the worst moments. When the doctors told us there was nothing more they could do, we brought Jamie home and took care of him together during his final weeks. Jamie died 3 years ago when he was 8. Andrew completely shut down after the funeral. He stopped returning my calls and texts. When I went to his apartment to check on him, he barely opened the door. He looked like he hadn't showered or eaten in days. His place was a disaster with takeout containers everywhere and dirty clothes piled up. I started bringing him groceries and doing his laundry. He never asked me to, but he never told me to stop either. Slowly, he started talking to me again. We began meeting for coffee once a week, then twice a week. We never talked about Jamie during those first few months. We just sat together and sometimes one of us would cry without saying anything. About 2 years ago, we started acknowledging Jamie's birthday and the anniversary of his death. Last year, we visited his grave together and went to dinner afterward. It became our way of honoring his memory without falling apart completely. This year, Jamie would have turned 11. Andrew suggested we do something Jamie would have liked instead of just being sad all day. Jamie loved pizza and arcade games, so we went to Chuck E. Cheese in the afternoon. It felt strange being there without any kids, but we played skee ball and ate terrible pizza just like Jamie would have wanted. After Chuck E. Cheese, Andrew invited me back to his place. He had bought a small cake and we lit 11 candles for Jamie. We sat in his living room eating cake and looking through old photos on his phone. Andrew had videos I had never seen of Jamie playing with his toy trucks and singing songs he made up. We opened a bottle of wine and kept looking at pictures. Andrew showed me videos of Jamie practicing for his school talent show. In one video, Jamie was trying to juggle and kept dropping the balls while laughing hysterically. We both started laughing and crying at the same time. The wine made everything feel less heavy. We moved to his couch and kept talking about funny things Jamie used to do. Andrew remembered how Jamie insisted on wearing his Superman cape to the grocery store every week. I told him about the time Jamie tried to give his vegetables to the dog under the table and got caught with green beans falling out of his pockets. At some point, we ended up sitting very close to each other on the couch. I don't remember who moved first, but we started kissing. It wasn't like when we were married. Back then, everything felt rushed and stressful. This was slow and careful, like we were both afraid to break something fragile. We ended up in his bedroom. I won't go into details, but it was completely different from when we were together years ago. We were different people now. We fell asleep holding each other, and I woke up around 6 in the morning. Andrew was already awake but he wasn't looking at me. I got dressed quietly and he walked me to the door. I thanked him for the day and he nodded. Neither of us mentioned what happened. I drove home and have been replaying everything in my head for the past 3 days. I haven't heard from Andrew since I left his apartment. Usually, he texts me within a day or two after we spend time together, even if it's just to share a meme or ask about work. But there's been complete silence. I've picked up my phone to text him probably 50 times, but I have no idea what to say. I keep wondering if we both just needed comfort on a hard day and used each other to feel less alone. Or if there were actual feelings involved that we've been ignoring for years. I can't tell the difference anymore. Part of me wants to pretend it never happened and go back to our normal friendship. But another part of me can't stop thinking about how right it felt to be close to someone who understood exactly what I was going through. I'm scared to bring it up because I don't want to lose the only person who really gets what it's like to lose Jamie. But I'm also scared not to bring it up because this silence is killing me. I have no idea what Andrew is thinking or if he regrets what happened. I know this situation is complicated and probably sounds crazy to people who haven't been through something like this. But Andrew and I have been through things together that most people can't imagine. We've seen each other at our absolute worst and somehow managed to stay friends through all of it. I need advice on what to do next. Should I reach out to him and acknowledge what happened? Should I wait for him to contact me first? Should I pretend it never happened and try to go back to normal? I'm completely lost and don't want to make this worse than it already is. Update 1. Thank you to everyone who commented on my last post. Reading your responses helped me realize I needed to stop overthinking everything and just talk to Andrew. The silence between us was getting ridiculous and I missed talking to him. I texted him last Tuesday asking if he wanted to meet for coffee like we used to do. He replied within an hour saying yes and suggesting we meet at the diner where we always went. When I got there, he was already sitting in our usual booth looking nervous. We ordered coffee and sat there awkwardly for a few minutes before I finally brought up what happened. I told him I had been thinking about Jamie's birthday and wasn't sure how to process everything. Andrew said he had been thinking about it too and felt confused about what it meant. We both admitted we missed talking to each other and didn't want things to stay weird between us. Andrew said he didn't regret what happened but wasn't sure if it was just grief or something more. I told him I felt the same way. We talked for over 2 hours about everything we had been thinking for the past 2 weeks. It was the most honest conversation we had ever had, even more than when we decided to get divorced. By the end of our talk, we decided we wanted to see if there was something real between us or if it was just the emotion of the day. Andrew suggested we try going on an actual date, something we had never really done even when we were married. We agreed to take things slowly and see what developed. Our first date was dinner at a restaurant we had never been to together. It felt strange at first because we were trying to be romantic instead of just friends. But after a while, we relaxed and had a good time. Andrew told me stories about his job that he had never shared before, and I realized how much I didn't know about his daily life. We've been on 4 dates over the past 2 weeks. We went to a movie, took a walk around the lake, and had lunch at a place downtown. Last weekend, Andrew came over to my house and we cooked dinner together. It was the first time he had been in my kitchen since before Jamie died. After dinner, we were washing dishes and he kissed me again. This time it didn't feel like we were both grieving and looking for comfort. It felt like two people who actually liked each other. We spent the evening on my couch watching Netflix and talking about random things. I'm not going to lie, this whole situation still feels weird sometimes. Andrew and I have so much history together, both good and terrible. We know each other's worst habits and biggest fears. But we also know each other's strengths and have been through things that would break most people. The strangest part is that I'm starting to see him differently than I did when we were married. Back then, we were both stressed and immature and had no idea what we were doing. Now he's more patient and thoughtful than he used to be. He listens better and doesn't get defensive when we disagree about things. We haven't told anyone about this yet. My sister would probably think I've lost my mind, and Andrew's brother has never been supportive of anything Andrew does anyway. We decided to keep this between us until we figure out where it's going. But here's where things got complicated. Last Friday, I was at the grocery store and ran into my neighbor Carol, 50 SF, who lives across the street from Andrew. She made a comment about seeing my car at his place several nights recently and asked if everything was okay. I told her we were just spending more time together as friends, but she gave me a look that made it clear she suspected something more was happening. Carol has always been a gossip, but she was also close to Jamie and has been kind to both Andrew and me since he died. She brings us casseroles sometimes and always asks how we're doing. But I could tell from her expression that she was surprised to see us together so much. Then yesterday, Andrew called me sounding upset. Apparently Carol had called him and asked directly if we were dating. She told him she was concerned about us moving too fast after everything we had been through. Andrew said he was polite but told her it wasn't her business. But after the call, he started questioning whether we were making a mistake. When we met for coffee yesterday afternoon, Andrew seemed different. He kept saying maybe we were confusing grief with romantic feelings and should slow down even more. He suggested we take a break from dating and go back to just being friends for a while. I was surprised by how much his suggestion bothered me. Over the past 2 weeks, I had started looking forward to our dates and thinking about him in ways I hadn't in years. The idea of going backward felt like giving up on something that might actually work. We ended up having our first real disagreement since we started dating. I told Andrew I thought he was letting Carol's opinion influence him too much. He said he was just trying to be careful and didn't want us to ruin our friendship by rushing into something we weren't ready for. We left the coffee shop without resolving anything. Andrew said he needed some time to think, and I said I did too. That was 2 days ago and we haven't talked since. I'm back to staring at my phone and wondering what he's thinking. I'm frustrated because things were going well between us until someone else stuck their nose in our business. But I'm also wondering if Andrew was looking for an excuse to pull back because he's getting scared. This whole situation is more complicated than I thought it would be. Update: 2 things between Andrew and me have gotten much more complicated since my last update. The break he wanted turned into 3 weeks of barely talking to each other. We exchanged a few texts about practical things, but the easy communication we used to have was gone. I was getting tired of the back and forth, so I decided to be direct. I went to his apartment last Saturday and told him I thought we were both overthinking everything. I said I missed him and wanted to try dating again without worrying about what other people thought. Andrew let me in and we sat at his kitchen table talking for hours. He admitted he had been scared about changing our relationship and losing me completely if things didn't work out. I told him I had the same fears but thought what we had was worth the risk. We decided to give dating another try, but with better boundaries. We agreed not to discuss our relationship with neighbors or family members until we knew where things were heading. We also decided to be more intentional about spending time together instead of just falling into old patterns. The first week back together went well. We had dinner at my place on Tuesday and went to a concert on Friday night. Andrew seemed more relaxed and stopped second-guessing every decision we made. I started thinking maybe we had worked through our issues and could move forward. But then I found out something that changed everything. Last Wednesday, I was at the bank and ran into Sarah, 29F, who used to be Jamie's babysitter when he was younger. Sarah had always been good with Jamie and we stayed in touch occasionally after he got sick. Sarah asked how Andrew and I were doing and mentioned she had heard we were dating. I was surprised because we hadn't told anyone except that we had decided to keep things private. When I asked where she heard that, Sarah said Carol had told several people in the neighborhood that Andrew and I were together. I was annoyed that Carol was spreading gossip about us, but then Sarah said something that really bothered me. She told me that Carol had also mentioned Andrew had been asking her out for coffee recently. According to Sarah, Carol said Andrew seemed lonely and was looking for companionship. At first, I thought Sarah must have misunderstood something. But then she described specific details about conversations Carol claimed to have had with Andrew. Sarah said Carol told her that Andrew had complimented her cooking and asked if she would like to have dinner with him sometime. I spent the rest of the day trying to convince myself that Sarah had gotten the story wrong. But the more I thought about it, the more things started making sense. Andrew had been hesitant about dating me and kept suggesting we slow down. Maybe he was interested in someone else and didn't know how to tell me. I decided to ask Andrew directly instead of assuming the worst. When he came over for dinner on Thursday, I brought up my conversation with Sarah. I asked if he had been talking to Carol about anything other than our relationship. Andrew got defensive immediately. He said Carol had brought him a casserole a few weeks ago and they talked for a few minutes on his porch. He claimed it was just neighborly conversation and he hadn't asked her out for anything. But when I pressed him for details, his story didn't match what Sarah had told me. Andrew said Carol had only visited once, but Sarah mentioned multiple conversations. Andrew also couldn't explain why Carol would tell people he was interested in her if he had only been polite. We ended up arguing about it for over an hour. Andrew kept insisting nothing inappropriate had happened with Carol, but he couldn't give me a straight answer about exactly what they had discussed. I told him I felt like he was hiding something from me and that made me question everything else about our relationship. The argument ended with Andrew leaving my house angry. He said he was tired of having to defend himself and prove his intentions to me. I said I was tired of feeling like I was the only one really invested in making our relationship work. We didn't talk for a week after that fight. I kept replaying our conversation and trying to figure out if I had overreacted. But I also kept thinking about how defensive Andrew had gotten when I asked simple questions about Carol. Finally, I decided to get the truth from Carol herself. I went to her house last Saturday morning and asked her directly about her interactions with Andrew. Carol seemed surprised by my questions at first, but then she started talking. Carol told me that Andrew had indeed visited her several times over the past month. She said he seemed to be struggling with something and would stay on her porch talking for long periods. According to Carol, Andrew had asked her advice about relationships and whether she thought it was possible for divorced couples to get back together successfully. But then Carol said something that really hurt. She told me that Andrew had also asked if she would be interested in going to dinner with him. Carol said she had declined because she knew about our history and didn't want to get involved in a complicated situation. Carol also mentioned that Andrew had seemed uncertain about whether getting back together with me was a good idea. She said he expressed concerns about us having too much painful history and whether we could ever have a normal relationship. I left Carol's house feeling completely betrayed. Andrew had been telling me he wanted to work on our relationship while simultaneously asking another woman out and expressing doubts about me to her. I realized he had probably been looking for a way out of our relationship from the beginning. I sent Andrew a text that afternoon telling him I knew about his conversations with Carol and we needed to talk. He called me within an hour and asked if he could come over. When he arrived, I told him everything Carol had said. Andrew admitted he had talked to Carol more than he had originally told me. He said he had been confused about his feelings and needed someone outside the situation to talk to. He also admitted he had asked Carol to dinner, but claimed it was just as friends and happened before we started dating again. I told Andrew I didn't believe his timeline and thought he had been dishonest with me from the beginning. I said I felt like I was competing with Carol for his attention and that wasn't something I was willing to do. Andrew tried to convince me that Carol didn't mean anything to him and he wanted to focus on our relationship. But I had already made up my mind. I told him I thought we should stop seeing each other romantically and go back to being just friends. Andrew left my house that night looking defeated. We haven't spoken since then except for one text exchange where he apologized and said he understood my decision. I'm disappointed because I really thought we might have something special this time, but I'm also relieved to know the truth. Update 3: I've been thinking about whether to post another update, but some things have happened that I wanted to share. The situation with Andrew has basically ended, but there have been some unexpected developments that I didn't see coming. After my last update, Andrew and I didn't talk for about 6 weeks. I threw myself into work and spent more time with friends I had been neglecting. It was hard at first because Andrew had been such a big part of my routine for years, even before we tried dating again. About 3 weeks ago, I was at Target and saw Carol in the checkout line. She looked uncomfortable when she noticed me, but I decided to approach her anyway. I wanted to clear the air since we live in the same neighborhood and would probably keep running into each other. Carol apologized for getting involved in my relationship with Andrew. She said she never intended to cause problems between us and felt bad about how everything turned out. Then she told me something I wasn't expecting. According to Carol, Andrew had come to her house the day after our final conversation and told her he had messed up badly. He explained that he had asked her to dinner because he was scared about getting back together with me and was looking for a distraction. Carol said Andrew told her he realized he had feelings for me that were deeper than he wanted to admit, and that scared him. Carol also said that Andrew asked her not to tell me about their conversation because he was embarrassed about how he had handled everything. She said he seemed genuinely upset about hurting me and regretted not being honest from the beginning. I was surprised to hear this because Andrew had never been good at admitting when he was wrong, even when we were married. But I also didn't know what to do with the information. Too much had happened for me to just forget about his dishonesty and give him another chance. 2 weeks ago, Andrew finally reached out to me. He sent a long text message apologizing for everything and asking if we could meet for coffee. He said he understood if I didn't want to see him, but he wanted to explain his side of things properly. I agreed to meet him, mostly because I missed having him in my life as a friend. We met at the same diner where we had our first conversation about dating, which felt appropriate somehow. Andrew was more direct than I had ever seen him. He admitted he had been scared about getting serious with me and had talked to Carol because he was looking for reasons not to pursue our relationship. He said asking her to dinner was stupid and dishonest, and he regretted handling everything so poorly. But then Andrew said something that surprised me. He told me that during our weeks apart, he realized he had been sabotaging our relationship because he was afraid of losing me again. He said losing Jamie had been the worst thing that ever happened to him, and the idea of losing me too was terrifying. Andrew said he thought if he kept our relationship casual or found someone else to focus on, he wouldn't risk getting hurt again. But he realized that approach was just hurting both of us and preventing him from being happy. I appreciated his honesty, but I told him I wasn't interested in dating him again. Too much trust had been broken, and I didn't want to spend months wondering if he was being completely truthful with me. I said I was willing to be friends again, but only if he could accept that decision without trying to change my mind. Andrew said he understood and just wanted me back in his life in whatever way I was comfortable with. We talked for another hour about other things, and it felt good to have a normal conversation with him again. Since then, we've been slowly rebuilding our friendship. We've had coffee twice and exchanged texts about random things. It's different than it was before because there's still some awkwardness between us, but it's getting better. The unexpected part of all this is that I've started dating someone new. I met David, 38M, through a coworker about a month ago. He's a teacher and has never been married, which means he doesn't have the complicated history that Andrew and I share. David knows about Jamie and my relationship with Andrew, but he doesn't treat me like I'm fragile or damaged. We've been on several dates and I really like him. He's completely different from Andrew, more straightforward and less complicated. I haven't told Andrew about David yet because I don't think he needs to know right now. We're still working on being friends again, and I don't want to complicate that process. Eventually I'll probably mention it if things get more serious with David, but for now I'm keeping my dating life separate from my friendship with Andrew. Andrew seems to be doing better too. He mentioned he's been spending more time with his brother and has joined a hiking group through work. He looks healthier than he has in a long time and seems less stressed overall. I think this whole experience taught me that some relationships are meant to stay in the past, even when you care about the person deeply. Andrew and I have been through too much together to have a simple romantic relationship. We work better as friends who understand each other's history but don't try to recreate something that didn't work the first time. I'm glad we tried dating because it helped me realize what I actually want in a relationship. I want someone who is direct and honest, even when it's difficult. I want someone who doesn't run away when things get complicated. And I want someone who sees me as more than just a shared trauma or a way to relive the past. Andrew will always be important to me because he's the only other person who loved Jamie the way I did. But that doesn't mean we're meant to be together romantically. Sometimes caring about someone means accepting that you're better apart than together. I let my wife's sister stay with us after she escaped a bad marriage, but she told me she had feelings for me and that she was a better match for me than my own wife, so when I told my wife the truth, her sister tried to flip the whole story on me. My wife, Kathy, 28F, and I, 33M, have been married for just over 2 years. We dated for about 3 years before that, so by the time we got married we had already been through enough together to know what we were signing up for. We bought a house in a mid-sized city about 14 months ago. 3 bedrooms, more space than 2 people need, but we figured we would grow into it. 5 months ago, Kathy's older sister, Dana, 37F, moved in with us. Dana had been married for about 5 years to a man named Harris. By the time the marriage ended, it had been bad for a while. Harris had a pattern of drinking heavily and when he drank things got physical. Dana had left him once before, about 2 years into the marriage, but she went back. The second time she left, last spring, she did not go back. The problem was that when she left, she had very little to fall back on. The apartment they had shared was under Harris's name. She had a part-time bookkeeping job that she had picked up after years of doing freelance work, but it was not enough to cover rent on her own anywhere close to where she wanted to be. Her savings were thin. Kathy brought it up to me one evening, about a week after Dana had left Harris. She asked if Dana could stay with us for a few months while she got back on her feet. I said yes. I did not have to think about it for long. What Dana had gone through was serious, and we had the room. Dana moved in on a Friday with 3 bags and a cardboard box. Kathy took the day off work to help her settle in. For the first 6 or 7 weeks, things were straightforward. Dana kept mostly to herself. She was job hunting, going to interviews, and spending a lot of time on her laptop at the kitchen table. She joined us for dinner a few times a week and the conversations were easy enough. She talked about her interviews, we talked about work, nobody was stepping on anyone. Somewhere around the 3rd month, things started to feel different. Kathy and I are not overly showy people but we are comfortable with each other. We hold hands when we walk somewhere, we finish each other's sentences, we have running jokes that go back years. Normal couple stuff. One evening Kathy came to me quietly and said that Dana had mentioned to her that being around us sometimes made her feel out of place. Given what Dana had just come out of, that made sense to me. Watching a couple be easy with each other is probably not a comfortable thing when your own marriage just fell apart. Kathy asked if we could just dial it back a little while Dana was around. I said fine. So we adjusted. No big deal. We were less physical when Dana was in the room, kept the inside jokes to a minimum at the dinner table. But then other things started happening that I could not explain the same way. When Kathy and I were laughing about something in the kitchen, Dana would walk through, say nothing, and leave. Not in a hurry, just quietly. There was a particular evening where Kathy and I were sitting on the couch watching something and I looked up and Dana was standing in the hallway just looking at us. Not doing anything, just standing there. When I caught her eye she went back to her room. I asked her the next morning if she wanted to join us for whatever we were watching that night and she said she was fine and went back to her coffee. I mentioned the hallway thing to Kathy and she said Dana was probably just having a rough night. I did not push it. Now I get to the reason I'm writing this. 4 Saturdays ago, Kathy went out to dinner with a group of friends she had not seen in a while. They had been planning the night for weeks. She invited Dana before she left. Dana said she was tired and would rather stay in. I was coming home late from a work event that ran longer than it was supposed to. I got back to the house at around 9:30. When I walked in through the front door, the living room was dark. I reached for the light switch and turned it on. Dana was sitting on the floor with her back leaning against the armchair. There was an open wine bottle on the coffee table and a glass in her hand. The bottle was about 2/3 empty. I asked if she was all right. She said she was fine. I said she did not look fine. That was when she started talking. She told me she had been holding something back for months and that she had tried to wait it out, but it was not going away. She told me she had developed feelings for me. She said she thought that she and I were better suited for each other than Kathy and I were. She talked about Harris and said I was the opposite of him in every way. She said Kathy did not fully appreciate what she had. I let her finish. Then I told her clearly that what she had just said was not something she could say again. I told her she had been drinking and that I was going to help her to the guest room, and that in the morning she needed to think about what had just happened. She started crying. I walked her to the guest room, put a glass of water on the nightstand, and left. I went back to the living room, cleaned up the bottle and the glass, wiped down the coffee table, and then I got in my car and drove around for close to an hour. When Kathy texted that she was on her way home, I turned around and went back. I did not say anything to Kathy that night. I told myself I was waiting until I figured out how to start the conversation. Over the next few days Dana acted completely normal. She said good morning, she made small talk, she passed things at the dinner table without being asked. Nothing in her behavior suggested anything had happened. But whenever I sat next to Kathy, I was aware of Dana looking at us from wherever she was sitting. I spent about a week going back and forth on what to do. I read some posts on here from people in similar situations. Every single comment said the same thing: tell your partner. So that is what I decided to do. I waited for a Tuesday evening when Dana had gone out to follow up on a job application. I sat Kathy down and told her everything from start to finish. I went through it slowly. I wanted her to be able to ask anything she needed to ask without feeling like I was rushing past something. She listened to the whole thing without interrupting. Then she asked if there had been any moment before that night where Dana had said or done anything that crossed a line. I said no, just the staring and the general mood shifts. She asked if I had ever been alone with Dana in a way that felt off. I said we had been alone in the house plenty of times because we lived together, but nothing had ever happened or been said before that night. Kathy did not react the way I expected. She did not cry right away. She asked me to give her some time alone. I went upstairs. About an hour later she came up and told me she wanted to speak to Dana herself, and she did not want me in the house when that conversation happened. She asked if I could stay at my parents' place for the night. I said yes. I am writing this from my parents' guest room right now. About 2 hours ago Kathy texted me saying she had spoken to Dana, that Dana had packed a bag, and that she had booked her a week in a nearby Airbnb. She said she would explain everything when I got back. I do not know what was said between them. I will post an update when I know more. Update 1: I am back home. Here is what happened. When I got back from my parents' place, Kathy was in the living room. Dana's room was empty, door open, bed stripped. Kathy looked like she had slept badly, but she was calm when she talked. She walked me through the conversation with Dana. Kathy had sat Dana down and told her what I had shared. Dana did not say anything for the first few minutes. Then her account of that night changed. Dana told Kathy that the night in the living room had happened differently. She said I had been the one to come in and sit down next to her while she was drinking. She said I had started the conversation, that I had made comments about things being stressful at home, and that she had picked up on signals from me over the months. She said she had told me how she felt only because she thought I had been leading up to it. Kathy told me she listened to all of it without cutting her off. Then she asked Dana one question: if that was what had happened, why had Dana not come to her the next morning? Dana did not have an answer. After that the conversation moved in a different direction. Dana stopped talking about that night and started talking about Kathy. She told her that growing up, things had always been easier for Kathy. That their parents had pushed more for Kathy's education, shown up more for Kathy's events, and generally treated her like the one who was going to be fine. Dana said she had spent years watching Kathy land on her feet while she had struggled. She brought up specific things. There was a job years ago that their father had put in a word for Kathy about, without mentioning it to Dana even though Dana had been looking for work at the time in the same field. There was a birthday trip their parents had taken Kathy on when Dana was told her turn would come, and it never did. She brought up Kathy's wedding and said she had spent the whole day feeling invisible. Kathy had never shared any of this with me. I had no idea the relationship between the two of them had this kind of history underneath it. When Dana finished, Kathy told her the Airbnb was booked and that she needed to pack and leave that evening. Dana asked if this was permanent. Kathy said she did not know yet. Dana left. Over the next couple of days I found out some additional things. A few months before Dana moved in with us, Kathy had asked her opinion on repainting a few rooms in the house since Dana had done some interior decorating work in the past. Dana had sent a detailed reply with color suggestions and ideas. Kathy and I had gone in a different direction because we liked something else. Dana had brought this up during the conversation as another example of being ignored. There was also something from before our wedding. Dana had told Kathy she thought the venue was too formal and that we should have chosen something more relaxed. Kathy had not taken the advice. Dana had made a comment at the time and let it go, or so it seemed. Apparently she had not fully let it go. None of those things individually would mean much. People disagree about venues and paint colors. But the pattern of them, combined with what happened in the living room, pointed to something that had been building for a long time. Kathy called her parents a few days after Dana left. She kept it short. Dana had said something to her husband that crossed a line, and Dana had been asked to leave the house. She did not go into the full detail. Her father called me later that day. He did not ask what had happened from my side. He told me that Dana had been through enough already and that asking her to leave the house was an extreme response. I told him I heard him and ended the call. Her mother called Kathy separately and told her that Dana had a different version of events and that she hoped Kathy had not acted on one side of the story. So the version Dana had told her parents matched what she had tried to tell Kathy, that I had been the one to start it. Kathy did not change her position. She told her mother she believed me and that she was not going to keep discussing it. Her mother did not push further, but the calls between them became shorter after that. The Airbnb week ended a few days ago. Dana has since moved in with a friend who lives about 40 minutes away. I do not know what happens after that. Update: 2 things moved again this week. Kathy got a long written message from her mother. It laid out a few things. The first was that permanently cutting off Dana was not something the family could accept. The second was that Dana had told both her parents she was running low on money and would not be able to cover her share of the friend's rent past another 2 or 3 weeks. The third part was a question directed at Kathy. Was there anything Kathy had done, or the way they had set things up in the house, that might have made Dana feel pushed out? That third part sat with Kathy for a few days. She did not respond to the message right away. On the third day she wrote back to her mother. She said she had thought about the question and did not believe she had treated Dana poorly, and that she was not ready to reopen contact with Dana at that point. She told her mother she would reach out when she was ready. Her mother replied with one line saying she hoped Kathy would think about the long-term cost of this. Then Dana messaged Kathy directly. It was not an apology. It was more of an explanation. She wrote that she had been in a dark place and that what she felt for me was something she had never planned to act on and would not have. She said the way things had been handled was more severe than the situation called for. She said she missed her sister. Kathy read the message and did not reply. Then something came from a direction I did not expect. A mutual friend of Kathy and Dana named Bridget, 39F, who had known both sisters for over 10 years, reached out to Kathy. Bridget told her that Dana had given her 2 different versions of what had happened. The first version, told shortly after Dana left our house, was that there had been a misunderstanding. The second version, which came out a week later, was closer to the truth, that Dana had said what she said to me but had expected me to say nothing and let things go back to normal. That expectation was the part Kathy kept coming back to. Dana had assumed I would hear it, keep quiet, and let things continue as they were. Kathy brought it up to me and did not say much else about it. She just sat with it for a while. We transferred some money to Dana through a separate message, enough to cover a few weeks of expenses. It was not meant as a gesture of forgiveness. It was more about making sure the financial pressure was not the thing forcing anyone into a conversation before they were ready. Kathy sent it without any message attached. Update: 3 Dana found a room in a shared house on the other side of the city. She moved in about 12 days ago. She sent Kathy a short message saying she had found a part-time accounting job and that she would pay back what we sent when she could. Kathy replied saying she was glad Dana had found something. Their mother called Kathy last week and asked whether the 2 sisters would be willing to be in the same place for a family get-together that is coming up in about 5 weeks. Kathy said she needed more time to decide. Her mother said she understood but that she hoped Kathy would consider it. As of now, Kathy and Dana have not spoken directly. Kathy has not blocked her, but she has not initiated contact either. My relationship with Kathy's father is at a standstill. He has not called since that first conversation. I have not reached out either. The guest room Dana used has been cleared out. Kathy moved her desk in there and has been using it as a home office. Last weekend we finally got around to repainting the hallway, something we had put off since we moved in. We picked a color neither of us had been fully sure about, and it turned out better than expected. The family get-together is still 5 weeks away. Kathy has not made a decision about it yet. That one is hers to make. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2: My sister-in-law got arrested for impersonating child services to terrorize me during pregnancy because she wanted to adopt my baby, but even after she got out of prison she violated her restraining order and showed up at my house. I'm Jessica, 28F, and I need to share what happened to me during my pregnancy. My husband Oscar, 29M, and I have been together for 6 years, married for 3. We live in a small ranch house in Ohio that we bought 2 years ago. Oscar works as an electrician and I teach 2nd grade at the local elementary school. When I got pregnant with our first baby, we were over the moon. We had been trying for 8 months and finally got our positive test in January. Oscar immediately started converting our spare room into a nursery. He painted the walls yellow since we wanted to be surprised about the gender. Every weekend for 2 months, he worked on building a crib from scratch and installing safety latches on all the cabinets. The pregnancy went smoothly until week 32. That's when everything started falling apart, though I didn't know it at the time. Let me back up and explain something important about Oscar. When he was 19, he got arrested for stealing a car. It wasn't really stealing. His friend Jake had borrowed his older brother's car without permission and Oscar didn't know. They got pulled over and both got charged. Oscar took a plea deal for misdemeanor theft and did 100 hours of community service. This happened 9 years ago. Since then, Oscar has never had so much as a speeding ticket. He doesn't even drink beer anymore because he said he learned his lesson. The incident happened on a Thursday afternoon in March. I had just gotten home from my last parent-teacher conferences before spring break. I was exhausted and my feet were swollen, so I was lying on the couch when someone knocked on our front door. The knock was loud and persistent, not like a neighbor or delivery person. I opened the door to find a woman who looked to be in her 50s. She wore a navy blue blazer and carried a brown leather folder. She introduced herself as Margaret from the Department of Children's Services. She said she needed to speak with me and Oscar about a report they had received. Margaret explained that someone had called their hotline claiming that Oscar was using drugs in our home and that this posed a risk to our unborn baby. She mentioned his previous arrest and said they had to take all reports seriously, especially when there was a criminal history involved. I invited her inside because I knew we had nothing to hide. Oscar came home from work about 20 minutes later and found us sitting at our kitchen table. Margaret had been asking me questions about Oscar's work schedule, our finances, and whether I had noticed any changes in his behavior. When Oscar walked in, his work boots were muddy and his uniform had electrical tape stuck to it. Margaret looked him up and down and made notes in her folder. She asked him to sit down and started questioning him about his daily routine. She wanted to know where he went after work, who his friends were, and whether he had been in contact with Jake, the friend from his arrest. Oscar answered every question calmly. He explained that he comes straight home after work every day. His lunch break is spent at the job site with his coworkers. On weekends, he works on house projects or we visit his parents who live about 40 minutes away. He hasn't spoken to Jake in over 5 years. Margaret then said she needed to inspect our house. She went through every room, opening closets and drawers. In the nursery, she examined the crib Oscar had built and asked why we had chosen not to find out the baby's gender. She looked through our medicine cabinet and asked about the prenatal vitamins I was taking. After the inspection, Margaret informed us that we both needed to take drug tests immediately. She said there was a lab across town that stayed open until 8 p.m. and we needed to go that day. We drove there separately, Oscar in his work truck and me following behind in our car. The drug test process took about an hour. We had to wait in a small room with plastic chairs while they processed our samples. Oscar kept checking his phone and tapping his foot on the linoleum floor. I filled out paperwork about my pregnancy and listed all the medications I was taking. Margaret called me 3 days later while I was at school. I had to step out of my classroom during lunch to take the call. She said both our drug tests came back negative and the home inspection didn't reveal any concerns. I started to thank her when she cut me off. She said that despite the clean tests, there was still a high probability that the hospital would place a hold on our baby when it was born. She explained that because of Oscar's criminal record and the nature of the original report, other agencies might get involved. She said it wouldn't be her decision and that we would have to wait and see what happened at the hospital. I sat in my empty classroom after that call and stared at the bulletin board covered with my students' artwork. The baby kicked hard against my ribs like she was trying to get my attention. That night, I couldn't sleep. Oscar was snoring beside me but I kept thinking about what Margaret had said. At 2 a.m., I got up and went to our computer. I found a legal advice forum online and typed out our entire story. The responses started coming within minutes. Most people were telling me to get a lawyer immediately. Several users said they worked in child services or knew people who did. They pointed out things that didn't make sense about Margaret's visit. One person said that in Ohio, child services typically doesn't investigate pregnant women unless they already have children in their care. Another person said that hospitals can't just take babies without a court order or clear evidence of immediate danger. Multiple people suggested I verify that Margaret actually worked for the department. I printed out the most helpful responses and showed them to Oscar when he woke up. He read through them while drinking his coffee and eating the scrambled eggs I had made. When he finished reading, he set the papers down and said we needed to call a lawyer that morning. Oscar's uncle had used a family lawyer named Robert Chen a few years ago for his divorce. I called Mr. Chen's office as soon as they opened and explained that we had an emergency situation. His secretary squeezed us in for an appointment that afternoon. Mr. Chen listened to our story without interrupting. He took notes on a yellow legal pad and asked us to repeat certain details. When we finished talking, he said the whole situation sounded irregular for our state. The first thing Mr. Chen did was call the local Department of Children's Services office. He explained that he was representing us and asked to speak with the supervisor about our case. He gave them our names and asked about the investigation being handled by Margaret. Mr. Chen put the call on speaker so we could hear. After being on hold for several minutes, the supervisor came back on the line. She said they had no employee named Margaret in their department. She also said they had no open case involving our family and had never received any reports about us. Mr. Chen thanked the supervisor and hung up the phone. He looked at both of us and said we needed to go to the police station immediately. Someone had been impersonating a government worker, which was a serious crime. We drove straight to the police station from Mr. Chen's office. The officer who took our report was named Detective Williams. She had us describe Margaret in detail, her height, hair color, the type of car she drove, and exactly what she had said during her visit. Detective Williams explained that impersonating a public servant was a felony in Ohio. She said they would start investigating right away and asked us to call immediately if Margaret tried to contact us again. That evening, I called my obstetrician's office and spoke with the nurse. I explained the situation and asked them to make a note in my file about the imposter. The nurse said she would alert the hospital security and make sure our delivery team was aware of the potential threat. We also decided to stay at Oscar's parents' house until after the baby was born. We packed our hospital bags and drove to their place that night. Oscar's mom, Linda, made up the guest room and insisted on making us dinner even though we had already eaten. Our daughter Emma was born 2 weeks later at the hospital. The security team had Margaret's description and kept an extra watch on the maternity ward. Emma arrived healthy after a long but normal labor. Oscar cried when he held her for the first time, which made me cry too. We stayed at the hospital for 2 days and then went back to Oscar's parents' house. Linda had prepared the guest room with a bassinet and all the baby supplies we needed. She helped me learn how to breastfeed and showed Oscar how to change diapers properly. 3 days after Emma was born, Detective Williams called with an update. They had arrested someone in connection with our case. She said we needed to come to the station to identify the suspect in a lineup. Update 1: The person they arrested was someone I never expected. It was my sister-in-law Kelly, 26F, Oscar's younger sister. When Detective Williams told us the suspect's name, Oscar just stared at her. He asked her to repeat it because he said he must have heard wrong. But she confirmed it was Kelly who had been impersonating the child services worker. Kelly had been arrested at her apartment across town. The police found the navy blazer and brown folder she had used during her visit to our house. They also found printed pages with information about child services procedures that she had apparently researched online. During questioning, Kelly admitted to everything. She said she had been the one who called the child services hotline to make the false report about Oscar using drugs. She had also been the one who came to our house pretending to be Margaret. Detective Williams explained that Kelly's motivation was complicated. According to her confession, Kelly believed that Oscar was not ready to be a father because of his past arrest. She thought that if child services got involved, we would realize we weren't prepared for a baby and would consider other options. Kelly also admitted that she had been struggling financially and had hoped that if we decided not to keep the baby, she could adopt it herself. She had been trying to get pregnant with her boyfriend for over a year without success and had been seeing a fertility specialist. Oscar didn't say anything during the meeting with Detective Williams. He just sat in the plastic chair and looked at his hands. When we got back to his parents' house, he went straight to the guest room and closed the door. Linda was in the kitchen feeding Emma a bottle when I told her what had happened. She set the bottle down on the counter and sat down hard in one of the kitchen chairs. She said she couldn't believe Kelly would do something like this. Oscar's dad, Frank, came home from work about an hour later. Linda told him about Kelly's arrest while he was still standing in the doorway with his lunch cooler in his hand. Frank set the cooler down and went to find Oscar in the guest room. I could hear them talking through the closed door, but I couldn't make out the words. Frank's voice was low and steady, and Oscar's responses were short. They talked for about 30 minutes before Frank came back out. The next day, Linda went to visit Kelly in jail. She was gone for most of the afternoon and came back looking tired. She said Kelly had been crying and kept saying she was sorry. Kelly claimed she never meant for things to go as far as they did. According to Linda, Kelly said she had only planned to make the initial phone call to child services. She thought they would just do a quick check and then close the case. But when nothing happened after a few days, she decided to take matters into her own hands. Kelly had researched child services procedures online and found old employee directories to create her fake identity. She had practiced what she would say and even bought the blazer and folder at a thrift store to look more official. Linda said Kelly kept asking if Oscar and I would visit her in jail. She wanted to explain herself and apologize in person. Linda told her that probably wasn't going to happen anytime soon. Oscar finally started talking to his parents about the situation after Linda's jail visit. He said he felt stupid for not recognizing his own sister, even though she had worn her hair differently and used a different tone of voice during her visit. Frank pointed out that people don't expect family members to lie to them in such an elaborate way. He said Oscar had no reason to question whether Margaret was really a government worker because the idea that it could be Kelly was so far outside the realm of possibility. We stayed at Oscar's parents' house for another week while we figured out what to do next. Emma was sleeping well and gaining weight, which the pediatrician said was exactly what we wanted to see. Oscar and I talked about whether we wanted to press charges against Kelly. The district attorney said we could choose not to pursue the case since it was a family matter, but Detective Williams recommended that we follow through with the prosecution. The charges against Kelly included impersonating a public servant, filing a false report, and harassment. If convicted, she could face up to 3 years in prison and significant fines. Linda asked us to consider Kelly's mental state and the fact that she had been struggling with infertility. She suggested that Kelly might benefit from counseling rather than jail time. Frank disagreed and said Kelly needed to face consequences for her actions. Oscar made the decision to proceed with pressing charges. He said that what Kelly had done wasn't just a prank or a misunderstanding. She had terrorized us during the final weeks of my pregnancy and put our family at risk. We moved back to our own house when Emma was 3 weeks old. Oscar installed new locks on all the doors and bought a security camera for the front porch. He said he wanted to make sure Kelly couldn't come back and try something else. Kelly's trial was scheduled for 2 months later. The public defender assigned to her case contacted us about the possibility of a plea deal. Kelly was willing to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. Update 2: Kelly's trial took place on a Tuesday morning in May. Oscar and I had to testify about what happened during her visit to our house and how her actions affected us. Kelly pleaded guilty to all charges as part of her plea agreement. The judge sentenced her to 18 months in prison with the possibility of parole after serving half the sentence. She also had to pay restitution for our legal fees and attend counseling sessions. During the sentencing hearing, Kelly's lawyer asked if she could make a statement. Kelly stood up and apologized to Oscar and me. She said she knew what she had done was wrong and that she regretted putting us through such a difficult time. Kelly explained that she had been desperate to have a baby and hadn't been thinking clearly. She said the fertility treatments had been affecting her emotionally and she had made poor decisions as a result. She asked Oscar to forgive her someday, even if he couldn't do it right away. Oscar didn't respond to Kelly's statement in court. When the judge asked if we wanted to say anything, Oscar just shook his head. I told the judge that we appreciated Kelly's apology but that her actions had caused lasting damage to our family. After the sentencing, Linda approached us in the courthouse hallway. She said she understood if we needed space from the family for a while. She asked if she could still visit Emma occasionally because she didn't want to lose her relationship with her granddaughter. Oscar told his mom that she was welcome to visit Emma anytime. He said that what Kelly had done wasn't Linda's fault and he didn't want Emma to miss out on having a relationship with her grandmother. Frank was less understanding of the situation. He said Kelly had embarrassed the family and made it difficult for everyone to move forward. He stopped visiting Kelly in jail after her sentencing and refused to discuss her release date. We found out more details about Kelly's planning during the trial. The prosecution presented evidence that she had been researching our case for weeks before making the initial phone call to Child Services. Kelly had created fake social media accounts to monitor our posts about the pregnancy. She had also driven by our house multiple times to observe our daily routines. The level of premeditation involved in her plan was more extensive than we had initially realized. The most disturbing revelation was that Kelly had been in contact with adoption agencies in other states. She had inquired about private adoptions and asked about the process for adopting a baby whose birth parents changed their minds. Kelly's boyfriend, Marcus, testified that he had no knowledge of her plans. He said Kelly had been acting strangely for several months but he attributed it to stress from their fertility treatments. Marcus broke up with Kelly after her arrest and moved out of their shared apartment. Detective Williams told us that Kelly's case was unusual because family members rarely go to such elaborate lengths to deceive each other. She said most impersonation cases involve strangers trying to commit fraud or gain access to homes for theft. The strain of the trial affected Oscar's relationship with his parents. Linda continued to visit Kelly in prison and wanted to discuss Kelly's appeals process with Oscar. Frank thought Linda was enabling Kelly's behavior by maintaining contact with her. Oscar told his parents that he didn't want to hear updates about Kelly or discuss her situation. He said he needed to focus on his own family and couldn't handle constant reminders of what had happened. Linda respected Oscar's wishes but we could tell she was struggling with the division in her family. She had always been close to both of her children and didn't know how to navigate the situation. Emma continued to grow and develop normally throughout this period. She started sleeping through the night at 8 weeks old and began smiling responsively around 10 weeks. These milestones provided some positive focus during an otherwise difficult time. I returned to work when Emma was 12 weeks old. My principal and fellow teachers had been supportive throughout the situation. Several colleagues brought meals during Emma's first few weeks and offered to help with childcare if needed. Oscar's work relationships were more complicated because some of his co-workers knew about Kelly's arrest through local news coverage. The story had been reported in the newspaper with headlines about fake government workers. Oscar found it embarrassing to discuss and tried to avoid conversations about his family. Kelly was scheduled to be eligible for parole after serving 9 months of her sentence. The parole board would consider factors including her behavior in prison and her completion of required counseling sessions. Update 3: Kelly was released on parole in September, after serving 10 months in prison. She had to complete community service hours and continue attending counseling sessions as conditions of her release. Linda told us about Kelly's release even though Oscar had asked not to receive updates about her. Linda said she felt we should know because Kelly was living back in town and we might run into her at stores or other public places. Kelly found a job at a grocery store on the other side of town. She was living in a small apartment and had to check in with her parole officer twice a week. According to Linda, Kelly was following all the requirements of her parole and hadn't caused any problems. 2 weeks after Kelly's release, she showed up at our house on a Saturday afternoon. Oscar was in the backyard working on fixing our fence when she knocked on the front door. I was inside with Emma, who was 6 months old by then. I looked through the window and saw Kelly standing on our front porch. She looked thinner than before and her hair was shorter. She was holding a small gift bag and kept looking around nervously. I didn't open the door. Instead, I called Oscar's name and he came running around from the backyard. When he saw Kelly through the window, he told me to call the police. He said her presence at our house violated the restraining order we had filed as part of her plea agreement. Kelly saw Oscar through the window and started talking loudly. She said she just wanted to give Emma a gift and apologize in person. She placed the gift bag on our doorstep and said she would leave if we would just listen to her for 5 minutes. Oscar opened the door but didn't invite Kelly inside. He told her that she wasn't supposed to be at our house and that she needed to leave immediately. Kelly said she had been thinking about us every day in prison and needed us to know how sorry she was. Kelly asked if she could see Emma, even if it was just for a minute. She said she had bought a stuffed animal and wanted Emma to have it. Oscar told Kelly that she would never have any relationship with Emma and that she needed to accept that. The conversation lasted about 10 minutes before Kelly finally left. She took the gift bag with her when she walked back to her car. Oscar watched from the window until she drove away, then called the police to report the violation. Kelly's parole officer contacted us the next day to discuss the incident. She said Kelly would face additional restrictions and possible jail time for violating the restraining order. Kelly claimed she didn't understand that bringing a gift constituted contact. The parole officer recommended that Kelly be required to move to a different county as a condition of continuing her parole. Kelly agreed to relocate rather than return to prison. She moved about 2 hours away and found another job at a restaurant. Oscar's relationship with his parents became strained after Kelly's visit to our house. Linda had told Kelly our address when Kelly said she wanted to send Emma a card. Linda didn't think Kelly would actually show up in person. Frank was angry with Linda for giving Kelly our address. He said Linda needed to choose between supporting Kelly and maintaining a relationship with Oscar and Emma. Linda said she couldn't choose between her children and wanted to help both of them. Oscar decided that his parents couldn't visit Emma unsupervised anymore. He said Linda had proven that she couldn't be trusted to respect our boundaries regarding Kelly. Linda was upset by this decision but agreed to the supervised visits. We started having Linda and Frank over for dinner once a month instead of the weekly visits we had been doing. The dinners were pleasant but there was always an underlying tension about the topics we couldn't discuss. Emma celebrated her first birthday in October with a small party at our house. We invited Oscar's parents, my parents, and a few close friends. Kelly was not mentioned during the celebration, but I noticed Linda looking sad when Emma opened her presents. Kelly sent a birthday card to Emma through Linda, but we returned it unopened. Oscar told his mom that any communication from Kelly needed to stop completely. Linda said she understood but asked if there might be a time in the future when forgiveness would be possible. Oscar told Linda that he couldn't imagine ever having a relationship with Kelly again. He said that what she had done wasn't just a mistake or poor judgment, but a calculated plan to harm our family. The level of deception involved made it impossible for him to trust her again. Currently, Emma is 14 months old and walking everywhere. She says a few words and loves to play with blocks and stuffed animals. She doesn't know anything about what happened before she was born and we plan to keep it that way for now. Kelly has stayed away from our area since her relocation. Her parole will end next summer and she will no longer be required to check in with an officer. We hope that the physical distance and time will help her move on with her life without involving our family. Oscar and I don't discuss Kelly anymore unless something requires our attention, like legal updates or parole violations. We focus on raising Emma and maintaining our own relationship. The experience taught us to trust our instincts and question things that don't seem right, even when they involve family members. Linda still talks to Kelly occasionally, but she doesn't share details with us. Frank has not spoken to Kelly since her sentencing and says he doesn't plan to have a relationship with her in the future. The family will probably never be the same as it was before, but we have accepted that reality and moved forward with our lives. I walked out on my daughter's surprise party because my father's girlfriend decorated it entirely in pink after years of ignoring the fact that my 7-year-old hates that color, but now the whole family says I embarrassed them by choosing fast food over a thoughtful celebration. I never thought I would be the parent who walked out on a family dinner, but here we are. I am a mother of 2 kids and Chloe, 7F, my oldest, has strong opinions about most things. That is not unusual for kids her age. What makes this situation complicated is my father's girlfriend and her refusal to accept that my daughter knows what she likes. We live about 30 minutes from my father's house, which means we see him and his girlfriend regularly for family dinners and holiday gatherings. My father has been with his girlfriend Denise, 48F, for almost 14 years now. She moved in with him when I was 26. I have never called her my stepmother because the age gap between us is only 15 years, and that would be strange for both of us. She is just Denise. My father is 61 now, and he retired from his job at the post office 3 years ago. I should mention that I have 3 siblings. My younger sister Emma is 28 and she actually lives with my father and Denise in their house. She moved back home 2 years ago when her lease ended and rent prices went crazy in our city. My 2 brothers are 30 and 25. The older one is married with kids, and the younger one just graduated from college last year. Chloe has always been an interesting kid. She loves building things with blocks, she takes gymnastics classes twice a week, and she is obsessed with video games. Her current favorite is this racing game where you can customize cars. She also loves drawing and she has filled probably 50 notebooks with her sketches of animals and robots. When it comes to colors, she has very specific preferences. She loves yellow, bright green, and different shades of blue. There is one color she absolutely cannot stand, and that is pink. I am not exaggerating when I say she has hated pink since she was 3 years old. I have no idea where this came from. Her brother loves pink and purple, and I have never told either of my kids that certain colors are for boys or girls. When Chloe was 4, she actually cried when her preschool teacher gave her a pink folder for her artwork. The teacher switched it to a yellow one and there were no more tears. She has 2 pink items that she tolerates, a small stuffed rabbit that her grandmother gave her before she passed away, and a pink blanket with stars on it that she has had since she was a baby. Those items are exceptions because of their sentimental value. Everything else pink gets rejected immediately. Denise has known about this preference for years. The problem is that Denise has her own very rigid ideas about what little girls should like. In her mind, girls are supposed to love pink, want to wear dresses every day, play with dolls, and dream about being princesses. Chloe does not fit that description at all. She wears dresses maybe 3 times a year for special occasions, and the rest of the time she lives in jeans and t-shirts with dinosaurs or race cars on them. She has exactly 2 dolls and they have been sitting untouched in her closet for 2 years. Every single birthday and Christmas since Chloe turned 4, Denise has given her pink gifts. Every single time, Chloe has politely said, "Thank you," and then later asked me if we could exchange the item for a different color or donate it to another kid who would like it better. I have had multiple conversations with Denise about this. I have sent her text messages before holidays listing the colors Chloe likes and the types of toys she enjoys. I have shown her pictures of things Chloe would be excited to receive. Nothing works. Denise continues to buy pink dresses, pink toys, pink art supplies, and pink accessories. Last year for Chloe's 6th birthday, Denise gave her a pink bicycle helmet even though Chloe already had a blue one that she picked out herself. When Chloe opened the gift, she smiled and said, "Thank you," and then quietly told me later that she wanted to keep using her blue helmet. I donated the pink one to a community bike program. That same Christmas, Denise bought Chloe a pink backpack with sparkly princesses on it. Chloe needed a new backpack for school, but she specifically wanted one with planets and rockets on it. We had already ordered it online. I tried to return the pink backpack to the store where Denise bought it, but she had thrown away the receipt. It went to Goodwill. Denise also makes comments. A lot of comments. When Chloe takes gymnastics classes, Denise asks why she does not take ballet instead because ballet is more graceful and feminine. When Chloe talks about the cars she designed in her video game, Denise suggests she should play games about taking care of animals or running a bakery. When Chloe shows up to family dinners in her favorite green shirt with a dinosaur on it, Denise mentions how pretty she would look in a pink dress. My father usually stays quiet during these moments, or he changes the subject. My younger sister Emma sees all of this because she lives in the same house. She has told me privately that Denise talks about Chloe at home too. According to Emma, Denise is convinced that Chloe only dislikes pink because I have somehow influenced her against it. She thinks I am raising Chloe wrong and turning her into what Denise calls a tomboy, which she says like it is a bad thing. Emma has tried to explain to Denise that kids have their own personalities and preferences, but Denise does not listen. The situation came to a head 3 weeks ago. It was a Saturday in February. My father called me that morning and said he wanted to take the whole family out for a nice dinner. He suggested we meet at this restaurant called the Riverside Inn, which is in the next town over. It is a pretty fancy place with white tablecloths and a kids menu that Chloe actually likes because they have good mac and cheese. My father said he had made a reservation for 7 people, him, Denise, Emma, me, my husband, and both of my kids. He said it was a surprise and he wanted to do something special for the family. I thought it was a little random because nobody had a birthday coming up and it was not a holiday. But my father sometimes does spontaneous things like this, especially since he retired and has more free time. My husband and I agreed to meet them at the restaurant at 6 o'clock. About 2 hours before we were supposed to leave, my sister Emma called me. She sounded stressed. She said she needed to show me something and asked if she could send me some pictures. I said yes, and a minute later my phone started buzzing with image notifications. The pictures showed the private dining room at the Riverside Inn. The restaurant has a couple of rooms you can reserve for parties and events. This particular room was decorated from floor to ceiling in pink. There were pink streamers hanging from the light fixtures, pink balloons tied to every chair, a pink tablecloth on the table, pink paper plates and napkins, and a large pink cake in the center with Chloe's name written on it in darker pink frosting. There was a banner on the wall that said "Happy Birthday Chloe" in huge pink letters. I stared at my phone for a long time. Chloe's birthday is in November. It was currently February. Her birthday had been 3 months ago. I called Emma back immediately. She explained that Denise had planned this whole thing without telling anyone except my father. Denise had decided that Chloe deserved a special birthday celebration because, according to her, Chloe had not appreciated her real birthday party enough. For context, Chloe's actual birthday party in November was at a trampoline park. She invited 8 friends from school and they jumped around for 2 hours and ate pizza and vanilla cake with blue frosting. Chloe talked about it for weeks afterward. She had a great time. Emma said that she and my father had both tried to talk Denise out of the pink theme. My father had suggested just doing a nice family dinner without the birthday setup since it was not actually Chloe's birthday. Emma had reminded Denise multiple times that Chloe does not like pink. Denise had ignored both of them. She had spent the entire previous day decorating the room herself. She had ordered the pink cake special from a bakery. She had wrapped presents, all of which Emma confirmed were pink items. I showed the pictures to my husband. We both knew exactly how this would go. Chloe would walk into that room, see all the pink decorations, and her face would fall. She might cry. She would definitely be overwhelmed. At 7 years old, she has gotten better at managing her reactions in public, but this would be too much. And the fact that it was not even her birthday, that this was some kind of do-over party that nobody asked for, made it worse. My husband asked me what I wanted to do. I texted my father. I told him we were not coming to the restaurant. I said we were going to take the kids to get burgers and fries at the diner near our house instead, and that he was welcome to join us there if he wanted to have dinner with his grandchildren. I also said that we would not be participating in any surprise party, especially one that ignored everything Chloe likes. My father called me immediately. He was in his car, already driving to the restaurant. He said I was overreacting and that Denise had put a lot of effort into this surprise. He said it would hurt her feelings if we did not show up. I asked him why Denise's feelings mattered more than Chloe's comfort. He did not have an answer for that. He said he would see me at the diner. We took the kids to the diner. We ordered burgers and milkshakes and the kids played with the coloring sheets the waitress gave them. My father showed up about 20 minutes later. He came alone. He sat down at our table but he barely spoke. He did not order any food. He stayed for maybe 15 minutes and then he said he had to leave. He hugged the kids quickly and walked out. That night I got a long text message from Denise. She said I was teaching my daughter to be ungrateful and spoiled. She said that any normal child would be excited about a surprise party and that the fact that Chloe would not appreciate it proved that I was raising her wrong. She said I was being controlling by restricting what colors my daughter was allowed to like. She said the whole family was disappointed in me for choosing fast food over a thoughtful celebration. I did not respond to that text. I did get messages from my siblings though. Emma said she was sorry the whole thing happened and that she tried to stop it. She also said that maybe I could have been less blunt in my text to my father, but she understood why I did not want to go. My older brother said he supported my decision and that Denise needed to respect boundaries. My younger brother did not take a side. He just said he hoped everyone could move past it. My father sent me a short text the next day. He said we needed to talk in person. I agreed. My husband and I arranged for my older brother to watch the kids for an afternoon, and we invited my father and Denise to our house. This was about a week after the restaurant incident. They came over on a Wednesday. We sat in our living room. I made coffee but nobody drank it. My husband started the conversation. He said we needed to establish some clear rules going forward. He listed 3 things. First, no more surprise parties or events without checking with us first. Second, no more gifts in colors that Chloe has specifically said she does not like. Third, no more comments calling our kids spoiled or ungrateful just because they have preferences. Denise did not take it well. She said she was only trying to help Chloe become a normal girl. She said that every girl loves pink deep down and that Chloe just needed more exposure to it. She said that when she was young, she loved everything pink and frilly, and she turned out fine, so there was no reason Chloe should be different. My husband asked her a question. He said if Chloe hated the color orange, would Denise keep pushing orange gifts on her? Denise looked confused and said no, that would be silly. My husband asked why pink was different. Denise did not have an answer. She just kept saying that pink is a girl color and Chloe is a girl, so she should like it. The conversation went in circles for a while. Eventually my father spoke up. He said he would try harder to support our boundaries and make sure Denise respected them too. He apologized for not stepping in sooner. I told him I appreciated that, but I needed to see actual changes, not just promises. Denise left our house barely speaking to us. My father looked tired. They drove away and I did not hear from either of them for 2 weeks. Things were quiet for a while after that. We saw my father at my older brother's house in March for my nephew's birthday party. Denise was there too. She was polite but distant. She did not make any comments about Chloe's clothes or interests. She gave my nephew a present that was age appropriate and not overwhelmingly pink, so that seemed like progress. I thought maybe we had turned a corner. I was wrong. Update 1. I thought I should update everyone because the situation with my father's girlfriend has gotten worse, and now we are dealing with the fallout. After the conversation at our house in February, things were calm for about 2 months. We had a family dinner at a neutral restaurant in late March, and Denise was polite but quiet. She did not make any comments about Chloe's outfit or interests. She brought a small gift for Easter in April, and it was a yellow stuffed chick, which was actually a color Chloe likes. I started to think that maybe the boundaries we set had actually worked. Then May happened. Chloe and her best friend from school, a girl named Sophie, both have summer birthdays. Chloe's is in early June and Sophie's is in late June. The girls have been best friends since kindergarten and they do everything together. This year they came up with the idea to have a combined birthday party since their birthdays are so close. Both sets of parents agreed it would be fun. The girls spent weeks planning their party theme. They had recently watched a movie musical together at Sophie's house and they became completely obsessed with it. The movie has 2 main characters, 2 friends who eventually end up on opposite sides of a conflict. One character wears mostly green and the other wears mostly pink. The girls decided they wanted their party to be based on this movie. Chloe announced at a family dinner in early May that she was going to dress up as the green character for the party. Sophie would be the pink character. They had already picked out their costumes online with their parents' help. Chloe was so excited about it. She talked about how the green character was brave and stood up for what was right even when everyone was against her. I noticed Denise's face during this conversation. She got very quiet and her mouth was pressed into a thin line. My father tried to change the subject by asking Chloe what kind of cake they were having. Chloe said they were doing 2 cakes, one green and one pink, so each birthday girl got her favorite color. Denise made a comment then. She said it was interesting that Chloe chose the character who was not the pretty one. Chloe looked confused and said both characters were pretty in different ways. Denise said that most girls would want to be the pink character because she was more feminine and popular. Chloe just shrugged and said she liked the green one better because she had better songs and a more interesting story. The dinner ended shortly after that. It was a little awkward but nothing too bad. I thought that was the end of it. 2 days later I got a text from Denise. It was long. I am not going to write the whole thing out but the main points were that I had failed as a mother, that I was deliberately turning Chloe against traditional femininity, that I was embarrassing the family by letting my daughter be so different from other girls, and that Chloe would grow up to regret not being more normal. She said that by letting Chloe dress as the green character instead of insisting she be the pink one, I was setting her up for social problems and unhappiness. I read the message 3 times. Then I showed it to my husband. He was furious. He wanted to call Denise immediately but I asked him to wait. I needed to think about how to handle this. I forwarded the message to my father with a short note. I said that this kind of communication was not acceptable and that if Denise could not respect our parenting choices and our daughter's personality, then we needed to seriously reduce contact. I said I was tired of defending my 7-year-old's completely normal preferences and that I was done with the comments and the judgment. My father called me an hour later. He sounded exhausted. He said he had talked to Denise and she was very upset. He said she did not mean for the message to come across so harshly and that she was just worried about Chloe. I told him that worry did not excuse insults. I told him that calling me a failed mother and calling my daughter abnormal was not acceptable no matter how Denise tried to frame it. He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked what I wanted him to do. I said I needed a real apology from Denise, not an excuse or a justification. I also said that going forward, Denise needed to stop making any comments about Chloe's choices, her clothes, her interests, or anything else related to her personality. If Denise could not do that, then she should not be around my kids. My father said he would talk to her. He said he understood why I was upset. He also said that Denise had some strong opinions about how girls should be raised because of her own childhood, but that was not an excuse to push those opinions on Chloe. I did not hear from Denise for a week. Then I got a text that said she was sorry if I was offended by her message and that she only wanted what was best for Chloe. That was not the apology I asked for. Saying sorry if I was offended is not the same as saying sorry for sending an insulting message. I replied and said that was not an actual apology. I did not get a response. Chloe's combined birthday party happened in early June. It was at a park with a pavilion. The girls wore their costumes and ran around with their friends. They had the 2 cakes and everyone sang happy birthday twice. Chloe had the best time. She told me later that it was the best birthday she ever had because she got to share it with her best friend. My father came to the party. He brought a present for Chloe, a science kit that she had mentioned wanting. Denise did not come. My father said she was not feeling well. I did not ask questions. I was honestly relieved that she was not there. After the party, my father pulled me aside. He said he wanted to talk without Denise present. We sat at one of the picnic tables while the kids played on the swings. He told me that things at home with Denise had been tense. He said she was upset that I did not accept her apology and that she thought I was being too sensitive. He said he had tried to explain to her that she needed to respect boundaries but that she kept insisting she was right about how girls should be raised. Then he said something that surprised me. He said he was starting to realize that maybe he had let Denise push too hard for too long. He said he should have stood up to her years ago when she first started with the pink gifts and the comments. He said he had always just tried to keep the peace because it was easier than arguing, but now he could see that it had made things worse. I appreciated him saying that. I told him it was not too late to set boundaries but that he needed to actually enforce them, not just agree with me in private and then go home and let Denise do whatever she wanted. He nodded. He said he would try. Then he went back to playing with the kids. I did not hear from Denise at all for the rest of June or most of July. My father came to a few family events alone. He always had an excuse for why Denise was not there. Everyone knew the real reason. In late July, my sister Emma called me. She said things at home were getting bad. She said Denise was constantly talking about how disrespectful I was and how I was ruining Chloe's chances at a normal life. Emma said Denise had even suggested that my father should stop seeing the grandkids until I apologized for being so difficult. My father had apparently told Denise that was never going to happen and they had a huge fight about it. Emma said she was planning to move out soon because the tension in the house was too much. She had been saving money and she found an apartment that she could afford with a roommate. She said she loved my father but she could not live in a house where Denise was constantly complaining about me and my family. I felt bad that Emma was getting caught in the middle of this. But I also knew I could not back down just to make things easier for everyone else. Chloe is my daughter and protecting her comes first. The situation reached a breaking point in early August. My father's birthday was coming up and my older brother was planning a family barbecue at his house. My father specifically asked that all of his kids and grandkids be there. I agreed to come. I assumed Denise would be there too and I was prepared for it to be awkward, but I was willing to deal with it for my father's sake. 2 days before the barbecue, I got a call from my older brother. He said Denise had called him and asked him to uninvite me and my family from the party. She told him that my father did not really want us there and that our presence would ruin his birthday. My brother told her he was not going to do that and that if my father did not want us there, he needed to say so himself. My brother called my father to ask what was going on. My father was apparently shocked. He had no idea Denise had called my brother. He said he absolutely wanted us at his birthday and that Denise had no right to try to uninvite us. According to my brother, my father and Denise had another big fight after that phone call. Denise accused him of choosing his grandkids over her. My father said it was not a choice and that she was out of line. I went to the barbecue. My father was there. Denise was not. My father seemed tired but he smiled when he saw the kids. Chloe gave him a card she made herself with drawings of his favorite things, his old mail truck, his fishing boat, and his dog who passed away last year. He teared up a little when he read it. We had a good afternoon. The weather was nice and the kids played in my brother's backyard. My father seemed more relaxed than he had been in months. Near the end of the day, I asked him if everything was okay. He said he did not know yet but that he was working on it. That was 3 weeks ago. I have not heard from Denise at all. My father has been coming to family events by himself. He talks to the kids and he seems engaged, but there is something sad about him now that was not there before. Emma moved out of my father's house 2 weeks ago. She said the environment there was too stressful. She said my father and Denise were barely speaking to each other and the house felt cold. I do not know what is going to happen next. My father has not said anything definitive about his relationship with Denise. I have not asked because it feels like something he needs to figure out on his own. What I do know is that I am not going to apologize for protecting my daughter's right to like what she likes and be who she is. If that makes things harder for everyone else, I am sorry about that, but I cannot change it. Update 2: A lot has happened since my last update and I need to write it all down because I am still processing everything. After my father's birthday barbecue in August, things went quiet for a few weeks. My father kept coming to family events without Denise. He never explained why she was not there and nobody asked. Emma had moved into her new apartment and she said my father seemed lost whenever she visited him. She said the house was too quiet and that he was not eating properly because Denise had always done most of the cooking. In mid-September, my younger brother called me. He said my father had asked to meet with all 4 of his kids together without any partners or grandkids present. That was unusual. My father is not the type to call formal family meetings. We all agreed to meet at my older brother's house on a Saturday afternoon. When we got there, my father looked different. He had lost weight and he had dark circles under his eyes like he had not been sleeping well. He sat down in my brother's living room and just started talking. He said that he and Denise had separated. She had moved out of his house 3 weeks earlier and was staying with her sister in a town about an hour away. He said they had been having problems for months, since before the pink party incident in February, but that situation had brought everything to the surface. My father said that after the fight about Chloe's birthday party costume and the text message Denise sent me, he had started seeing Denise differently. He said he started noticing how often she made judgmental comments about people, not just about Chloe but about lots of things. He said she had very specific ideas about how people should live their lives and she got upset when reality did not match her expectations. He said that when Denise tried to uninvite me from his birthday party, something broke for him. He realized that she was willing to damage his relationship with his children and grandchildren to prove a point about pink dresses and gender roles. He said he sat her down after that and told her she needed to apologize to me properly and stop making comments about how we raise our kids. She refused. She said she had nothing to apologize for and that if he could not see that I was raising Chloe wrong, then he was part of the problem. They had been sleeping in separate bedrooms since early August. They barely spoke except to argue. Finally, in late August, Denise said she was going to stay with her sister for a while to give them both space to think. She packed up a lot of her belongings and left. She had been gone for almost a month by the time my father told us about it. My father said he did not think she was coming back. He said he did not want her to come back. He said he had spent the past month thinking about their relationship and he realized he had been making excuses for her behavior for years. He said it was not just about Chloe and the pink issue. Denise had always been controlling and judgmental, but he had overlooked it because it was easier than confronting it. Emma spoke up then. She said she was glad he was finally seeing it. She said living in that house had been difficult for the past 2 years because Denise was always criticizing something. The way Emma dressed, the way she spent her money, the fact that she was not married yet, the friends she chose. Emma said she had wanted to move out long before she actually did, but she had stayed because she was worried about leaving my father alone with Denise. My younger brother said he had noticed Denise making comments about his girlfriend too. Little things about her weight and her career choices. He had not said anything because he did not want to cause family drama, but now he wished he had spoken up sooner. My older brother said that Denise had made comments to his wife about their parenting too, though not as extreme as what she said about me and Chloe. He said his wife had always felt uncomfortable around Denise but had been polite for my father's sake. It was like once my father opened the door to talking honestly about Denise, everyone had stories. I felt bad that my father was hearing all of this, but I also think he needed to hear it. He needed to understand that this was not just about one little girl who did not like pink. This was a pattern of behavior that had affected the whole family. My father apologized to all of us. He said he should have protected us better and that he should have set boundaries with Denise years ago. He said he had gotten comfortable and lazy in the relationship and he had let things slide that he should not have let slide. I asked him if he and Denise were getting divorced. He said probably. He said they were not legally married so it would not be an actual divorce, but yes, he thought the relationship was over. He said Denise had called him a few times since she left but their conversations always ended in arguments. She kept insisting that she was right about everything and that he and all of us were too sensitive. My sister asked my father how he was doing. He said he was sad and tired but also relieved. He said the house felt peaceful now even though it was empty. He said he was sleeping better than he had in months. We spent the rest of the afternoon with my father. We ordered pizza and just talked about normal things. It was the most relaxed I had seen him in over a year. In early October, Denise called me. I did not answer. She left a voicemail. She said she wanted to talk to me woman to woman. She said a lot of things in that voicemail, including that she still thought I was making a mistake with how I was raising Chloe, but that she was willing to put our differences aside for the sake of family unity. She said if I apologized for being disrespectful to her, she would consider coming back and trying to work things out with my father. I saved the voicemail but I did not call her back. I forwarded it to my father. He called me that evening and said he had listened to it. He said it was typical Denise, making everything conditional and still not taking any responsibility. He said he had already told her their relationship was over and that me apologizing would not change anything. I asked him if he was sure. He said yes. He said he had wasted enough years trying to make a relationship work with someone who could not respect other people's boundaries. That was a month ago. Denise has not contacted me again. According to Emma, Denise has been telling people that my father left her because I turned him against her. That is not true, but I do not have the energy to correct every story she tells. My father is doing better. He joined a fishing club and he has been going out on the lake twice a week. He seems lighter somehow. He comes over for dinner once a week and he plays with the kids in the backyard. Chloe made him a keychain in her art class and he carries it everywhere. Last week Chloe asked where Denise was. She said she noticed that Denise had not been at any family events for a long time. I told her that Denise and her grandfather were not together anymore. Chloe thought about it for a minute and then asked if that meant Denise would not give her pink presents anymore. I said probably not. Chloe said okay and went back to playing her video game. I think that is the healthiest reaction any of us could have had. Update 3. This will be my last update because I think this whole situation has finally reached its end point, or at least as much of an ending as it is going to get. It has been about 2 months since my last post. The holidays are coming up and that has brought some complications, but overall things have been much calmer than they were earlier this year. My father is still living alone. Denise never came back. According to my sister Emma, Denise is still at her sister's place and she has been telling people that my father abandoned her after 14 years because of his ungrateful daughter. I have heard this from a few extended family members who wanted to know my side of the story. I have kept my explanations brief. I just say that Denise and my father had relationship problems that had nothing to do with me and that I am not interested in discussing it further. In late October, Denise showed up at my older brother's house unannounced. She said she wanted to talk to all of my father's children together. My brother called me and asked what he should do. I said it was his house and his choice, but I personally was not interested in meeting with her. My older brother told Denise that if she wanted to talk to us, she needed to arrange it properly and not just show up. She got upset and left. She tried the same thing at my younger brother's apartment a week later. He did not let her in. He talked to her through the door and told her that whatever she wanted to say, she could say it in a text or email. She apparently stood in the hallway for 10 minutes trying to convince him to let her inside before she finally left. After that, she sent a group email to all 4 of us. It was 6 paragraphs long. The main points were that she had been a part of our family for 14 years and we were all being disloyal by cutting her off, that she had always tried her best to be a good partner to my father and a good influence on the grandchildren, and that we were all making a mistake by believing my version of events. She said my father was going through a difficult time and was not thinking clearly, and that if we really cared about him we would encourage him to give her another chance. None of us responded to the email. My father found out about Denise's attempts to contact us. He was not happy. He sent Denise a text message telling her to stop trying to reach out to his children and to stop showing up at their homes. He said if she had something to say, she could say it to him directly, but she needed to leave the rest of the family alone. She called him after that. Emma was visiting my father when it happened and she heard his side of the conversation. According to Emma, Denise was crying and saying that she was being erased from the family after giving 14 years of her life to my father. My father told her that she had made her choices and these were the consequences. He said he had asked her repeatedly to respect boundaries and she had refused. He said it was over and she needed to accept that. Emma said my father seemed shaken after the call but also firm in his decision. He told Emma that he felt guilty because he had wasted 14 years of Denise's life and his own, but staying together would just waste more time for both of them. In November, Chloe had a school project about family traditions. She had to interview family members and write about what makes her family special. She interviewed me, her father, her brother, both of her uncles, her aunt Emma, and her grandfather. She did not ask about Denise. When I asked her if she wanted to include Denise in the project, Chloe said no because Denise was not really family. I did not correct her. At 7 years old, Chloe is old enough to understand who treats her with respect and who does not. Chloe's project included a drawing of our extended family. She drew herself in the middle wearing her favorite green shirt. She drew her brother next to her. She drew me and her father. She drew her grandfather holding a fish. She drew her uncles and aunt. Everyone in the drawing was smiling. She got an A on the project. Thanksgiving was last week. We had it at my house this year. My father came. Emma came. My brothers and their families came. We had 20 people crammed into our dining room and living room. It was loud and chaotic and the kids were running everywhere and it was perfect. My father brought a green bean casserole that he made himself. It was not very good but everyone ate it anyway and complimented him on trying. He seemed happy. He spent most of the afternoon on the floor building a racetrack out of blocks with Chloe and her cousins. At one point, Chloe came running up to me holding something. It was a small bracelet made of beads. She said she made it in art class and she wanted to show it to me. The beads were different shades of purple and magenta. I asked her what color that was and she said it was purple pink. She said she had decided she actually liked that specific shade of pink, but only when it was mixed with purple to make it look more like a jewel color. I told her it was beautiful. She put it on and ran off to show her grandfather. My husband was standing next to me and he had heard the whole thing. He said that was the thing about kids. They grow and change and figure out what they like on their own timeline. They do not need anyone to push them into it. He is right. Chloe is still the same kid she has always been. She still loves yellow and green and blue. She still plays racing games and draws robots. She still takes gymnastics and builds elaborate structures out of blocks. And now, at 7 years old, she has decided that she likes one very specific shade of purple pink when it is in bead form on a bracelet. That is her choice. Nobody forced it and nobody prevented it. My father pulled me aside before he left that night. He thanked me for hosting and he said this was the best Thanksgiving he had had in years. Then he said something that surprised me. He said he was proud of me for standing up for Chloe even when it made things difficult. He said he should have done the same thing years ago and he was sorry it took him so long to figure it out. I told him it was not too late and that what mattered was that he had figured it out eventually. As for Denise, I have not heard from her since the group email in October. I do not expect to hear from her again. My father has not mentioned her in weeks. Emma says Denise has unfollowed all of us on social media and blocked most of the family. I think that is for the best. Christmas is coming up. Chloe has already told me what she wants: a new set of art supplies with markers in every color, a robot building kit, and a yellow winter coat because her blue one from last year is too small. Her list does not include anything pink, but if it did, that would be fine too. Because it would be her choice. That is where things stand now. My daughter is happy and healthy and completely herself. My father is rebuilding his life and seems lighter without the weight of a relationship that was not working. My family is closer than we have been in years. And Denise is somewhere else, hopefully figuring out her own life. I do not think I'm going to post any more updates about this. The story is over as far as I am concerned. Life goes on and we are all moving forward. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. My family called me dramatic for wanting to be included in business planning but had no problem using my tech skills for free until I finally said no and their business collapsed. I'm Jake, 32M, and I need to get this off my chest because I'm still processing what happened last month. My family runs a small catering business that's been their main source of income for the past 5 years. They've always treated me like an outsider, but what happened at my nephew's graduation planning meeting was the final straw. Let me give you some background first. I'm the middle child between my older sister Rebecca, 35F, and younger brother Zachary, 29M. Rebecca is married to David, 37M, and they have a son Tyler, 18M, who just graduated high school. Zachary is married to Sarah, 27F, and they have twin daughters who are 12. My parents are Linda, 58F, and Robert, 60M. The family dynamic has always been weird with me. Rebecca was the star student who became a nurse and married young. Zachary was the baby who could do no wrong and became a firefighter like our dad wanted. I went into software development and never married or had kids. Family gatherings always felt like I was watching from the sidelines while everyone else played the main game. 5 years ago, my parents decided to start a catering company called Taste of Home. They had always loved cooking and thought it would be a good retirement plan. Rebecca handles the books and customer service. Zachary does deliveries and setup. David helps with food prep on weekends. Even Sarah pitches in with decorating and social media posts. From day one, they made it clear I wasn't really part of the business side of things. When I offered to help build their website, my mom said they wanted to keep it simple and just use Facebook. When I suggested better accounting software, Rebecca said she had it handled with her spreadsheets. When I offered to create a proper ordering system, my dad said they preferred talking to customers directly. But here's where it gets interesting. Despite not being officially part of the business, they constantly called me for tech support. Their Facebook page kept getting hacked because they used the same password for everything. Their email was always full because they never deleted anything. Their phones were constantly freezing up because they downloaded every app that looked interesting. Every single time, I would drop what I was doing and fix their problems. I spent entire weekends reformatting their computers, setting up new email accounts, and teaching them basic digital security. I never charged them anything because they're family. The business started doing well after the second year. They were booking weddings, birthday parties, and corporate events. The money was good enough that my parents could quit their regular jobs. Rebecca reduced her nursing hours to part-time. Zachary was talking about leaving the fire department to focus on catering full-time. Last month, Tyler graduated from high school. My parents wanted to throw him a big graduation party as both a celebration and a way to showcase their catering skills to potential new customers. They planned to invite about 150 people including extended family, friends, and business contacts. The planning started 3 months before the graduation date. Every Sunday, the family would meet at my parents' house to discuss details. Menu planning, decorations, guest lists, entertainment, everything. I assumed I would be included in these meetings since it's my nephew's party and I've been to every other family event. The first Sunday came and went. No invitation. I figured they forgot to tell me or assumed I knew. The second Sunday, same thing. By the third Sunday, I texted my mom asking about the meeting time. She said they had it covered and would let me know if they needed anything. That response bothered me more than I expected. I started paying closer attention to family group chats and social media posts. There were pictures of planning sessions, discussions about centerpieces, debates about whether to serve salmon or chicken. Everyone was tagged in these posts except me. I decided to bring it up directly with Rebecca since she's usually the most straightforward. I called her and asked why I wasn't being included in the party planning. She said they wanted to keep the planning team small and focused. When I pointed out that even Sarah was involved and she's newer to the family than me, Rebecca got defensive and said Sarah has event planning experience from her old job. 2 weeks before the graduation, I finally got fed up and drove to my parents' house during one of their Sunday planning meetings. I walked in and found everyone sitting around the dining room table with printed menus, seating charts, and timeline spreadsheets. They all looked up at me like I had interrupted something private. I asked if I could join the meeting since it's my nephew's party. My mom said they were almost done anyway and would catch me up later. My dad didn't even look up from his papers. Zachary said they had everything under control. Rebecca suggested I focus on just being a guest so I could enjoy the party. That's when David, who rarely says much at family gatherings, spoke up. He said the planning team was family members who were invested in the business success, and since I wasn't part of the business, it made sense for me to sit this one out. The room went quiet. I looked around at everyone's faces. Nobody disagreed with David. Nobody said I was part of the family regardless of business involvement. Nobody invited me to sit down and join them. I asked if this was really how they saw me. Not as Tyler's uncle who's been to every one of his birthday parties and baseball games, but as someone who's not invested enough in the family business to help plan his graduation celebration. My mom finally spoke up and said I was being dramatic. She said they appreciated everything I do for the family, but the business side of things was different. They needed people who understood the catering industry and could make quick decisions about vendors and logistics. I pointed out that I had never been given the chance to understand the catering industry because they kept me out of it from the beginning. I said it seemed convenient that I was family when they needed tech support, but not family when it came to being included in important decisions. Zachary said I was making everything about myself as usual. He said the party was about Tyler, not about my hurt feelings. Rebecca nodded and said they didn't have time for drama when there was still so much to organize. I stood there for another minute, waiting for someone to say something that would make this better. My dad finally looked up and said I was welcome to help with setup on the day of the party if I wanted to contribute. That's when I realized this wasn't about the party planning. This was about 5 years of being treated like free tech support instead of a family member. This was about being excluded from a business that I had helped keep running every time their technology failed them. I told them I wouldn't be helping with setup. I said if I wasn't family enough to be included in planning my nephew's party, then I wasn't family enough to provide free labor for their business anymore. I said I hoped their next computer crash would be as dramatic as they think I'm being. I left without saying goodbye to anyone. Tyler texted me later that night asking if I was okay because everyone seemed upset after I left. I told him I was fine and that I was looking forward to his party as a guest. The graduation party happened last weekend. I went and brought Tyler a nice gift. The food was great and the decorations were beautiful. I sat with some family friends who were happy to see me. I left right after Tyler's speech without helping with cleanup. Since then, I've been thinking about whether I overreacted. Part of me wonders if I should have just accepted my role as the tech support uncle and moved on. But another part of me feels like I finally stood up for myself after years of being taken for granted. I haven't heard from anyone in my family since the party except for Tyler, who thanked me for coming and for his gift. I'm not sure if this will blow over or if I've permanently damaged my relationships with everyone. Did I handle this the right way? Should I have tried harder to be understanding about their business decisions? I keep going back and forth on whether I was being reasonable or just petty. Update 1: I didn't expect my post to get so much attention, but reading everyone's responses helped me realize I wasn't crazy for being upset. A lot has happened since Tyler's graduation party, and I wanted to share what's been going on. The day after I posted, my mom called me. She didn't mention the party planning situation at all. Instead, she launched into a story about how their main computer crashed and they lost a week's worth of customer orders. She said Rebecca had been trying to recreate everything from memory and email fragments, but they were worried about missing important details. She asked if I could come over and help recover the files. I told her I was busy with work. She said it was an emergency and offered to pay me for my time. I asked her what my hourly rate would be since I was apparently not family enough to be included in business decisions but was expected to provide professional services. She got quiet and then said she didn't understand why I was being so difficult. She said family helps family, and this computer problem could really hurt their business if it wasn't fixed soon. I reminded her that according to David, I wasn't invested in the business success, so this wasn't my problem to solve. The call ended with her hanging up on me. 2 days later, Rebecca called. She tried a different approach. She said she understood I was upset about the party planning, but this computer issue was bigger than family drama. She said they had a wedding booked for the following weekend and couldn't access the menu specifications or timeline that the bride had approved months ago. I told Rebecca that she said she had everything handled with her spreadsheets, so she should be able to figure it out. She said the spreadsheets were on the crashed computer. I asked if she had backups. Long pause. Apparently, backing up files was another one of those technical things they never got around to learning. Rebecca offered to take me out to dinner if I would help them recover the files. I declined. She asked what it would take to get my help. I said an apology from everyone who was at that planning meeting would be a good start. She said I was being unreasonable and that family doesn't demand apologies for misunderstandings. I said family also doesn't exclude people from planning their nephew's graduation party, but here we were. By the end of the week, I heard from Zachary. He skipped the computer talk entirely and went straight to guilt trips. He said my stubbornness was going to ruin the family business and hurt everyone's livelihood. He said my parents had put their retirement savings into this company and I was being selfish by letting them fail over hurt feelings. I asked Zachary if he remembered telling me that I was making everything about myself. I said it was interesting that now everything was apparently about me and my technical skills. He said that was different because this was a crisis situation. I told him that maybe they should have thought about crisis situations before excluding their only tech-savvy family member from business discussions. I suggested he call David since David was so clear about who was and wasn't invested in the business success. Zachary hung up on me too. The weekend of the wedding came and went. I didn't hear anything from my family, but I did get a call from Tyler on Sunday night. He said the wedding had been a disaster. Without access to the approved menu, my parents had to guess what the bride wanted. They got several dishes completely wrong. The timeline was off because they couldn't remember when each course was supposed to be served. The bride was furious and refused to pay the full amount. She also left scathing reviews on their Facebook page and Google reviews. Tyler said his grandparents looked exhausted and defeated. He asked if there was anything I could do to help them recover the lost files. I told Tyler I loved him, but this situation was between me and his grandparents. I said they had made it clear that I wasn't part of their business family, and now they were experiencing what that actually meant. Tyler said he didn't understand what had happened between us, but he hoped we could work it out soon. I told him I hoped so too, but it wasn't up to me anymore. The following week brought more calls. Sarah called crying, saying the family was falling apart and everyone was stressed. She begged me to help fix the computer and promised she would talk to Zachary about including me more in family decisions. I told Sarah that I appreciated her concern, but this wasn't about being included more. This was about 5 years of being excluded and then expected to drop everything whenever they needed technical help. I said they had created the situation by treating me like an employee instead of a family member. David called me on Thursday. That was the most surprising call of all. He apologized for what he said at the planning meeting. He said he didn't realize how much I had been helping with their technical problems over the years. He asked if we could start over and find a way for me to be more involved in the business side of things. I told David that his apology was appreciated, but it didn't address the fundamental problem. I said the issue wasn't just about one comment at one meeting. It was about years of being treated like free tech support while being excluded from family business discussions. By Friday, my parents showed up at my apartment. I watched them through the window as they knocked on my door. I didn't answer. They stood there for about 10 minutes before leaving. My mom left a handwritten note that said they needed to talk and that this situation was getting out of hand. I threw the note away without reading the rest of it. This weekend, I heard through Tyler that they had to hire a computer repair service to try to recover their files. The service charged them $800 and was only able to recover about half of what they lost. They're trying to piece together customer orders from email records and phone call notes. I also heard that they had to cancel 2 upcoming events because they couldn't access the planning details and the customers wouldn't work with them to recreate everything from scratch. I know some people might think I'm being petty by letting their business suffer. But I keep coming back to what Zachary said about me making everything about myself. They made it clear that I wasn't really part of the family business. Now they're learning what that actually looks like. I don't feel good about their struggles, but I also don't feel responsible for fixing problems that they created by excluding me and then taking my help for granted. Update 2: the situation with my family has escalated in ways I didn't expect. I thought I should update everyone because things have gotten pretty complicated since my last post. 3 days after my previous update, Tyler called me with some news that explained a lot about my family's recent desperation. Apparently, my parents had taken out a business loan using their house as collateral when they expanded the catering company last year. The loan payments are significant, and they've been depending on steady booking income to make the monthly payments. With the computer crash and the lost customer data, they've had to cancel or reschedule multiple events. The negative reviews from the wedding disaster have also hurt their reputation. New bookings have slowed down significantly. Tyler said his grandparents are worried about making next month's loan payment. I felt a moment of concern when Tyler told me this, but then I remembered sitting in their dining room while David explained that I wasn't invested in the business success. I remembered my mom hanging up on me when I asked about my hourly rate. I remembered Zachary accusing me of being selfish. 2 days later, my dad showed up at my workplace. He waited in the parking lot until I got off work and then approached me as I was walking to my car. He looked tired and older than I remembered. He said the family needed my help and that this computer situation was threatening their livelihood. He said he was asking me to put aside whatever issues we had and help them recover the lost files and get their systems working properly. I told my dad that I wasn't holding aside anything. I said the issues weren't something that happened to us, they were choices that the family made about how to treat me. I reminded him that he didn't even look up from his papers when I asked to join the planning meeting. My dad said he didn't realize that moment had hurt me so much. He said they were just focused on getting the party organized and weren't thinking about how their actions might seem exclusive. He asked what it would take to get my help. I told him it would take a genuine acknowledgement from everyone who was at that meeting that they had treated me poorly, not just an emergency apology because they needed something from me. I said it would take a real conversation about how I fit into the family dynamic, not just promises to include me more when they needed technical help. My dad said he would talk to everyone and see what he could do. He asked if I would consider helping them in the meantime since their next loan payment was due in 2 weeks. I said no. Last week, Rebecca showed up at my apartment with Tyler. She brought him as backup, which I thought was manipulative but not surprising. Tyler looked uncomfortable being put in the middle of this situation. Rebecca said she wanted to have the conversation I had mentioned to my dad. She said she realized they had taken my technical help for granted over the years and that excluding me from the party planning had been hurtful. She said they wanted to find a way to make me feel more included in family business decisions going forward. I asked Rebecca if this sudden interest in inclusion had anything to do with their loan payment deadline. She said the timing wasn't ideal, but her desire to fix our relationship was genuine. I asked Tyler what he thought about being brought along to this conversation. Tyler said he just wanted his family to get along and that he didn't really understand what had gone wrong between us. He said everyone seemed stressed and unhappy, and he hoped we could work something out. I told Rebecca that bringing Tyler to manipulate me into helping was exactly the kind of behavior that had created this problem in the first place. I said using family members as emotional leverage was not the same thing as treating them like equal participants in family decisions. Rebecca got defensive and said she wasn't trying to manipulate anyone. She said Tyler had volunteered to come because he cared about both of us. Tyler nodded, but he looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. I told them both that I appreciated their concern, but this situation wasn't going to be resolved by one conversation in my hallway. I said it would take time and consistent behavior changes to rebuild trust, and I wasn't willing to provide emergency technical support while they figured out whether they actually wanted to treat me differently. Rebecca left without saying goodbye. Tyler apologized for being put in the middle and said he hoped things would get better soon. Yesterday, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It turned out to be a woman named Janet who said she was my parents' loan officer at the bank. She said my parents had given her my number as their technical support contact and asked if I could verify some information about their business systems for a loan modification application. I told Janet that I wasn't affiliated with their business and that she should speak directly with the business owners about any technical questions. She seemed confused and said my parents had told her I managed all their computer systems and would be able to provide documentation about their digital assets and customer database. That phone call made me realize how much my parents had been relying on my unpaid work to present their business as more professionally managed than it actually was. They had been telling their loan officer that they had proper technical support and database management, when in reality they had been depending on me to fix their problems for free whenever something went wrong. I called Tyler that evening and told him about the bank call. I explained that his grandparents had apparently been representing my volunteer tech support as professional business management to their loan officer. Tyler was quiet for a long time. He finally said he was starting to understand why I was so upset about not being included in business discussions. He said it seemed unfair that they would claim my work as a business asset while excluding me from business planning. I told Tyler he was exactly right, and that this was why I couldn't just fix their computer problems and pretend nothing had happened. I said they needed to decide whether I was part of their business family or not, and then treat me consistently based on that decision. Tyler said he would talk to his grandparents about this, but he didn't think they would understand the connection between the bank situation and the party planning meeting. I'm not sure what's going to happen next. Part of me wonders if they'll lose their house over this loan situation. But another part of me remembers that they created this crisis by excluding me and then taking my help for granted for years. Update 3. This will be my final update because the situation with my family has reached a conclusion that I don't think will change anytime soon. 2 weeks after my last post, my parents missed their loan payment. The bank started calling them daily about bringing the account current. According to Tyler, they were panicking and scrambling to find ways to generate quick income to catch up on their obligations. They booked 3 events for the following weekend, hoping to earn enough to make a partial payment and buy themselves more time. All 3 events were smaller parties, a baby shower, a retirement party, and a small wedding reception. Without proper customer management systems, they mixed up details between the events. The baby shower got decorations in the retirement party's color scheme. The retirement party got a cake that said "Welcome Baby Emma." The wedding reception got appetizers that included shellfish, despite the bride specifically mentioning her severe allergy when she booked the event. The shellfish incident resulted in an ambulance call and a trip to the emergency room. The bride's family is now threatening legal action. The other 2 events were disasters that resulted in refund demands and more negative reviews. Tyler called me the Monday after that weekend. He said his grandparents were devastated and that his grandmother had been crying for days. He said the family was talking about bankruptcy and selling the house to pay off the loan before the bank foreclosed. I asked Tyler how the other family members were handling the crisis. He said Rebecca had picked up extra nursing shifts and was talking about finding a full-time position again. Zachary was looking into going back to the fire department. Sarah was stressed because their family income was about to change significantly. Tyler also told me that there had been some heated arguments about whose fault the business failure was. Rebecca had apparently told everyone that if they had included me from the beginning, they would have had proper systems in place and this never would have happened. Zachary argued that I was being vindictive and could have prevented all of this by helping them recover the computer files. My dad had defended the original decision to keep me out of business planning, saying they had wanted to maintain family harmony by not mixing business with personal relationships. My mom had pointed out that they had been mixing business with personal relationships all along by expecting free tech support from me. Tyler said the arguments were getting ugly and that everyone was blaming everyone else for different aspects of the situation. 3 days later, my mom showed up at my apartment again. This time she came alone and looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. She said she wanted to apologize for how they had treated me and ask if there was any way I could help them save their business and their house. I told my mom that I appreciated her apology, but I needed to understand what specifically she was apologizing for. She said she was sorry for excluding me from the party planning and for taking my technical help for granted over the years. I asked if she was also apologizing for hanging up on me when I asked about my hourly rate. I asked if she was apologizing for telling the bank that I managed their computer systems while excluding me from business decisions. I asked if she was apologizing for showing up at my apartment only after their business started failing. My mom got quiet and then said she hadn't realized I was keeping track of all these specific incidents. She said she thought I was upset about one planning meeting, not about years of accumulated slights. I told her that was exactly the problem. She had never paid attention to how they treated me until they needed something from me. I said the planning meeting wasn't the beginning of the problem, it was just the moment when their pattern of behavior became impossible to ignore. My mom asked what she could do to make things right. I told her that making things right would require acknowledging the full scope of how they had treated me, not just apologizing for the parts that were convenient to remember. She asked if I would help them if she could get everyone to have that conversation. I told her that I wasn't interested in negotiating the terms of being treated with basic respect by my own family. My mom left without arguing, which surprised me. Last week, Tyler graduated from college. I sent him a card and a check for his graduation gift. I didn't attend the graduation ceremony because I assumed my presence would create tension on what should be a special day. Tyler called me that evening and thanked me for the gift. He said the family had been hoping I would come to the ceremony. He said they missed me and that family gatherings felt incomplete without me there. I told Tyler that I missed them too, but that missing someone and accepting poor treatment from them were two different things. I said I hoped someday we could have a relationship that wasn't based on me providing free services in exchange for being marginally included in family activities. Tyler said he understood my position better now after watching how the family had handled this crisis. He said seeing how they talked about me when I wasn't there had been eye-opening for him. Yesterday, I heard through a mutual friend that my parents are selling the house and dissolving the catering business. They're planning to move into a smaller place and my dad is looking for work again. Rebecca is back to full-time nursing. Zachary returned to the fire department. The friend asked if I felt bad about how things turned out. I told her that I felt bad that my family had gotten themselves into a financial crisis, but I didn't feel responsible for their business decisions or their decision to exclude me from their planning processes. I also heard that some extended family members think I should have helped them despite our disagreements. A few cousins have reached out to suggest that family loyalty should come before personal grievances. I've been thinking about those conversations a lot. I understand that some people believe family members should help each other regardless of how they've been treated. But I also think that family members should treat each other with respect consistently, not just when they need something. I don't know if my relationship with my parents and siblings will ever recover from this situation. I hope it will, but I'm not willing to go back to being the free tech support uncle who gets excluded from family decisions and then blamed when things go wrong. Tyler and I still talk regularly. He's starting a job next month and seems to be doing well despite everything that's happened with the family business. I'm proud of him for staying focused on his own goals while all this drama was happening around him. I've been sleeping better lately and spending more time with friends who don't treat my presence as conditional on what services I can provide. I'm not sure if that means I've handled this situation correctly, but it means I'm not willing to change course now. Sometimes you have to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your self-respect. I chose self-respect, and I'm still comfortable with that choice.